So this is our wobble tracker, and this lets us know, especially in the pivotal moments as it approaches our coastline, if we're going to see any deviations from the red track here, which is the center of the National Hurricane Center's forecast. This other path is how some of the wobbles that it's taken previously. So with that wobble to the north, we got a little worried, but it did jaunt back to the east. And so if it had continued to wobble to the north, that would have been a much more northern landfall. Small jogs to the north and south at this stage in the game make for wildly different landfalling locations. And so what I can tell you at this point is moving forward, we're getting to the point where it would be very difficult for landfall position to change drastically, which is good news because that means that we're going to see what we expected to see. And so right now, the outer edge of the eyewall there over Sarasota and Venice and Bradenton's on the edge of it. We're still seeing very heavy downpours, and we're expecting that rainfall flooding in Pinellas and northern Hillsborough as well as southern Pasco. And then the second side of the eyewall, remember Chief Meteorologist Jeff Berardelli was just talking about how high some of the winds were in the upper portions of this system on the back side of the eyewall. So we'll have to see if that translates to even stronger winds once the eye passes on the western edge of the eyewall. We keep checking in on our Lakewood Ranch camera because it's still got a really good view. Some of our cameras are facing directly into the wind and rain, and it's just basically a whiteout. You can't see anything, but you can see the palm trees blowing. You can see the whitecap waves on this normally just beautiful, peaceful lake. They've turned off the water fountain, so that's no longer going. We're watching these palm trees as well. Of course, tin roofs tend to do a lot better in these types of storms, so I don't think we'll end up seeing any damage unless we see flying debris on these roofs. It's the shingles that start to really fly around once we start to see the winds that we're expecting to see today. And so we're watching the reflectivity on the radar here. These are the winds that Jeff just sampled on the back half of the eyewall. Now these are up in the upper levels of the storm, so they won't be that when they make it to the lower levels, but it's still an indication that we could see some very, very heavy rain, heavy winds on the back half of this storm. So once you get past the first eyewall, you're not done. Unfortunately, most of us that see the first eyewall will also see the western eyewall as well because of the way that this storm is moving. And so taking a look at Max Defender 8 right now, it's the most accurate radar because we can see through these heavy rain bands to the next rain band and the next one after that, so that we can see that all parts of our area are getting those heavy levels of rainfall. The rainfall rates have been extreme, especially for Pinellas. Manatee County was in quite a bit of that, but now Sarasota and Manatee County will start to get a break in the rain, but only because they're moving through the eye, so it's not necessarily a good break in the rain. But the winds will come down. Unfortunately, you have that second half to deal with. As far as Hillsborough and Pinellas County go, just a washout, blinding downpours stretching all the way up into Pasco County. The blinding downpours get spottier in Citrus and Hernando County, and it looks like Polk County is getting a little bit of a break. But of course, western Polk County is starting to see more of those spotty downpours with that heavy rainfall rate as well. So flooding from rainfall is going to occur along into the north of the eye. Flooding from storm surge will occur along into the south of the eye. When we take a look around the radar at some of these views, we're starting to get the heaviest of the winds and rain in just north of Bradenton, from Bradenton northward up into St. Pete. We'll start to get some of those wind gusts really picking up in Tampa now as well, because the eye wall is getting the closest that it will get to Tampa will be over the next 2 hours as it kind of slides off to the northeast. But we'll probably get the north and eastern edge of the eye wall in Hillsborough County for a couple of hours, a significant period of time. And so as we zoom out a little bit, focusing on the Northport area, the winds really, really damaging at this point along the eye wall there in Sarasota counties as well as in Manatee counties. And we're continuing to watch it as it moves on shore. Lakewood Ranch, we'll probably check on that camera in a few minutes and we won't see rain, but we will still see wind. It'll be interesting to watch to see what this middle of the eye looks like, because the eye is going to move right over our Lakewood Ranch camera. Bradenton, you're on the edge of the eye wall as well. It stretches up towards the Skyway Bridge. It stretches up towards I-75 closer to Apollo Beach. Myakka City, conditions deteriorating for you and the wind starting to arrive at your location as well. And Venice, this is the surface of the eye wall, and then this is the top of the eye wall. So you won't really see the winds come down until the surface part of the eye wall goes over your area. The storm's getting tilted. The top of the storm's moving faster than the bottom of the storm at this point. And so Hillsborough County almost completely inundated with very heavy rainfall at this point. So think about how wet and how saturated the ground is. Now we're going to add possibly 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts to that. That is going to uproot a lot of trees. This storm will be defined by the debris float that is blown around because of what's left over from Helene. That's, of course, catastrophic storm surge to the south of the eye and uprooted trees because we have had an incredibly rainy season. All summer long it rained. We needed it, but it rained a lot. Then we got Helene, and now we're dealing with 8 inches of rain before, 6 to 8 inches of rain before the winds actually arrive. And so that's going to make for a soupy ground. It's going to be very hard for trees to hold on for that. The better locations for this storm, of course, Citrus County and parts of Hernando, but even eastern Hernando gets in on that 12+ inches of rain by the time this is all said and done. And so checking in on some Polk County right now. Eastern Polk County a little drier than western Polk County, but eastern Polk County had a lot of tornadoes earlier. The tornadic threat largely has passed. It moved over along the east coast, and now we're just looking at more straight line winds. These are your radar estimated rainfall totals. And so we have a lot that's above that 6-inch range, closer to 9. And once you start to see the little white spots or silver spots on there, that's 12 to 15 inches of rain. And so very heavy rainfall totals starting to pick up about 8.5 closer to Holmes Beach and Bradenton, 7.5 in between Bayshore Gardens and Sarasota. 5 inches of rain so far at Lakewood Ranch, 6.7 closer to Gillette, and Ruskin will fall in that range as well. A lot of Pinellas County in the 7 to 8.5 inch range in terms of rainfall right now. And so we know how easily we flood during summertime thunderstorms. When we're talking about flooding from rainfall, we consider 2 factors. The first is how much rain comes down, but the second is how fast that rain falls, because we have drainage avenues, we have ditches, we have waterways, we have places for that water to go, but it's a matter of how fast the rain is coming down, and our drainage systems can't keep up with those types of rainfall rates. And we're seeing both scenarios play out, not only heavy rain, but also in a relatively short amount of time. It doesn't feel short, but a couple of hours into the overnight hours still to go. We'll see the rainfall totals coming up in Town and Country and Temple Terrace next because they've got a lot of rainfall over it. And so based on the landfall location, this has updated a little bit. And so originally, this is a forecast model. It runs just like other types of forecast models do. But this forecast model runs off of the information from the National Hurricane Center's new track. And so at 5 o'clock, we got that new track, and it switched the landfall location about 10 miles north from Sarasota up to Bradenton. And so that started to include parts of Bradenton in the storm surge. If you remember at 3 o'clock, this forecast did not call for any storm surge in Bradenton. It started in Sarasota, but that small change does mean 3 to 6 feet of storm surge for parts of Bradenton is possible, where the winds are pushing on shore all the way up the river here as well. And so when people talk about how far does storm surge go, it's dependent on elevation. Coastline is relatively steep compared to some of the coastlines north of here, and so it doesn't move that far inland except in the bays and waterways. And so we're looking for 9 to 12 feet of storm surge south of Sarasota in Osprey and Venice. If you remember, this bullseye was centered on Venice before that last track shift. Now it's centered on Osprey, but we're still looking at 6 to 9 feet stretching from Sarasota all the way down to Inglewood. And notice over in Northport, your rivers do get quite a bit of storm surge as well. And so rivers and bays are oftentimes the forgotten part of storm surge, but as water rushes in, it funnels in even more tightly when it gets into the bays and rivers, and that causes higher levels there as well. Moving on, let's go ahead and check out what we're looking at in terms of current wind speeds, and these will start to fail at some point, but right now a lot of them are still in action. We've got 48-mile-per-hour sustained winds in St. Pete, 41 down in Sarasota and Venice. We're seeing some 59 to 66-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and we'll see those, of course, growing as the Eyewall gets a little closer. This is our in-house model, and so we were looking at it last night, and it was a lot faster than the National Hurricane Center's track and any other forecast models, but that's exactly what has played out. We're not looking at a midnight landfall. We're looking at a 7 to 8 p.m. landfall, and so it also perfectly forecasted some of the jogs that we saw, especially this last-minute one. And so what we're looking at right now, the northern edge, the upper edge of the Eyewall already on shore, but the surface edge of the Eyewall just approaching the coastline within the next 10 or 15 minutes or so, and then it makes its way on shore with all of that rain. Focus on the rain for just a minute as I play through this. It never stops raining very heavily in Pinellas, northern Hillsborough, and parts of Pasco County for hours upon hours upon hours. And so that is why we're expecting that swath of rainfall totals to be close to 18 inches if you drew a line from northern Pinellas all the way out out towards northern Lakeland. And so we'll watch this play out as the eye goes over Polk County just around midnight. You get that second eye wall of rain and wind moving through. And then look at when we start to dry out. It's early tomorrow morning. And then we start to clear out as well. Here's those northerly winds bringing down cooler, drier air, putting us in the 60s for Friday morning. And that's the silver lining. That's the only thing we got at this point, is that it'll be windows open weather and our first taste of fall waking up on Friday morning. Yes.
All right, thank you, Rebecca, for keeping us informed with that. We want to continue our team coverage now with reporter Asher Red. He is joining us live in Land O'Lakes tonight.
Asher, you're driving around in Pasco County. Tell us about the conditions you're seeing so far.
Yeah, well, right now, things are starting to pick up. We're starting to see those hurricane-force winds come through here. At last read, we had about 20-mile-an-hour winds. We're seeing just about 1.8 inches of rain so far. We could see 10 inches of rain, as we know. But let me go ahead and flip this camera around. Give me just a moment. All right, this is the camera on top of our roof. Now, this is just a view of what we're looking at. We've got very minor stuff in the street right now. You can see a little bit of rain moving sideways. We are starting to near one of the major roads here, and right around here is where we found some stuff that really kind of concerns us earlier. Right here is flooding thanks to that rainfall that we saw earlier. It's still continuing now. We've got some rain that's filling up the ditches, and also a lot of this residential area will be affected by A, the wind, and B, that potential of 10 inches of rain. Back to you.
All right, Red, thank you for that update. Again, reporting from Land O'Lakes tonight. The weather up there not nearly as bad as we've seen it in other places. However, in Pasco County tonight, you should be aware, shelter in place, because at this point there are no emergency vehicles on the road. The Pasco County has pulled them for safety reasons, to protect their vehicles, to protect their people. This storm's going to have to work its way through before they start running out again.
We are seeing that happen in several communities, all of Pinellas County, including Clearwater PD, St. Pete PD, and the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. They have pulled all of their officers and deputies off the roadways for the same reason. The same thing is happening in Manatee County. They are recommending you stay where you are, shelter in place in a safe location. You can call 911 if you have an emergency, and they will make an effort to get to you if they can, but a lot of them cannot do that safely. And so you really need to just stay in place and try to ride out the storm the best you can.
We've seen some pictures either from our cameras that are situated around Tampa Bay. We saw one from Dunedin earlier where we saw some palm trees that were knocked over. We saw flooding in the streets, cars
Very
actually
strong
still
winds
trying to
going
go through there. But this is a time where, you know, you should be where you're going to be and stay there for the next several hours. Well, tonight we are keeping a close eye on the Hillsborough River as well, because during Helene, we had so many neighborhoods and roads that were impacted by the flooding from that river and elsewhere around the South Tampa Bay area.
That's right. We had storm surge flooding during Helene here at our television station, which is right on the banks of the Hillsborough River. We're seeing quite the opposite playing out here with Hurricane Milton. We were prepared for storm surge, a catastrophic storm surge into the bay, but in fact, we're seeing the water pushed out of the river, pushed out of the bay. News Channel 8's Ty Russell is live for us along the Hillsborough River in downtown Tampa. We continue to see that march away at this point.
And thank goodness, Jen, we are seeing that water not go into the area, but out of the area. And hopefully we will continue to see that. And I do want to mention there are many shelters in Hillsborough County that are full right now. Now, county leaders are telling people to shelter in place, of course, but they always find a few families or so at the very, very last minute who just feel uncomfortable being home when it starts to rain. So they will try to make it over to a shelter at the last minute. So I do want to go down this list to tell you all which shelters are full. It's a very short list. It's Sickles High School, Durant High School, Shields Middle School, Burnett Middle School, Irwin Technical, and Strawberry Crest High. So if you do have to make that last minute decision, let's say if there's flooding in your mobile home community or something like that, don't go to those shelters because those shelters are full. You have to go somewhere else. But I'll step out of the way to give you a better picture of the Hillsborough River. Of course, over the last 30 minutes, it's much darker. And so that's why we are under, and we're staying under this shelter here. to make sure that we have light, to make sure we are safe because we are in evacuation zone A, but we want to keep the equipment safe as well to be able to give you live pictures because so many business owners and homeowners and, of course, people who rent apartments are watching this river here in Hillsborough. This is the Hillsborough River. We've been watching it throughout the day. Like Jen said and Keith were saying, this river is still going out toward the bay and not toward our communities. And we hope to continue to see that. Although, as you clearly know, because of the number of shelters that are filled, many people did listen to authorities. They did heed to the warning, and they were like, let's go and let's get to a safe place. And so many people did go and seek shelter elsewhere and not be along the river. And I'm so thankful I haven't seen anyone walking along the river walk. Of course, sometimes we see, people trying to go for a jog or anything like that. That was actually on News Nation. Roughly about an hour ago, someone was going for a jog. But we haven't seen that here where I'm standing, thank goodness, because officials want people inside, staying inside their homes, sheltering in place. And as you can see, the lights are still on here in downtown Tampa. Hopefully it stays that way. But again, we do expect the Eyewall to impact us greatly. And that's when we will start to see the lights flicker and maybe some power outages. But the wind is starting to pick up. And you're probably looking at the trees and you're probably thinking to yourself, Ty, the wind is not really that strong. Well, I want to tell you that these trees are blocked by a few buildings, so that's why you're not seeing them whip in this wind. But trust me when I say the wind is getting stronger and stronger by the hour. And I can even tell with the water because it gets a little choppy at times when there's a strong gust that comes through. But again, it's not at least going over the seawall. It's way below where it was during Helene, thank goodness. But we will continue to stay out here and monitor not only the shelter situation, but again, we are keeping our close eye on the river. And again, I just want to say, for people at home, we are yards away from the river. We are under a shelter. I know we are in evacuation zone A, but the photographer and I, we are staying safe, but we just want to be able to give you live pictures since so many people are watching the river. But for now, we are live in downtown Tampa. I'm Ty Russell, 8 on your side.
All right, thank you, Ty. And it's just opposite world depending on where you are, because what we're seeing here with the water going away, it's coming in other places like Sarasota County, because that's where the storm surge is still a major concern tonight.
Those folks down there are so worried tonight. This comes not even 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene, which flooded out so many homes, so many roadways. News Channel 8's Nicole Rogers shows us what conditions are like there now.
Well, of course, one of the biggest concerns here in Sarasota is the storm surge. The wind is another contributing factor, and I want to show you what we're seeing right now in Hurricane Milton. If I step out of the way, you can see these trees, just kind of how much the wind is pacing right now. We get it in bands. Right now, we're not seeing as much as we just saw not even 30 seconds ago. But then if we pan down, you can see what 30 seconds ago did. You're starting to see those palm fronds and debris on the ground, and that's just the beginning of what we're seeing in Milton. Over there, you can see people getting ready here in downtown Sarasota with sand. And as back to the first thing I said, that storm surge. That's really what we're going to be working on here in Sarasota and keeping everyone up to date on, because that is the biggest thing. I think a lot of times people that haven't been through it have a hard time comprehending that the entire Gulf can just raise towards Sarasota and come in a matter of minutes. A lot of people think that it's going to be slow. They're going to have time to think to themselves and be like, okay, let me get all my stuff and go. That is not the case. And that's why we see these evacuations in Sarasota County, and we see those evacuations across the Tampa Bay area. That's the main concern for tonight. That's not going to be until a little later. Right now, we're starting to see the wind come through and, of course, all of this rain. And if we pan over all the way to the other side, you can see the rain just coming in sideways now. It depends kind of which side you're standing on with the wind, but we are continuing to see the weather deteriorate here in downtown Sarasota. It's important that everyone stays safe, stays hunkered down for this storm, and we will be staying safe as well while keeping you informed. In Sarasota, Nicole Rogers, 8 on your side.
And keep in mind, that was about 30, 45 minutes ago when she recorded that for us there. But even before the landfall, and it's coming, it's knocking at the door at this point. We are starting to see some of the impacts of Hurricane Milton.
We've been seeing them for several hours. News Channel 8's Paola Suro is going through reported pictures and videos sent in by you, viewers just like you at home. Paola, what do you have for us at this hour?
Well, guys, I mean, you talked about it not too long ago. Several agencies are pulling its first responders from the road because of the dangerous situations that are taking place really all over. So I want to show you these pictures that we just got in not too long ago. This right here, this is all in Highlands County. The sheriff's office says that multiple structures were actually damaged by a possible tornado strike. So that's what they're telling us. All of these were mobile homes. This is a mobile park called Tropical Harbor Mobile Home Park. This is all in Lake Placid. They tell us it happened around 2 o'clock today. Officials say only one structure, thankfully, had major damage, but one person was injured, is what they're telling us. Now, I did want to also mention that report it. You can send us any pictures that you might have, any videos. We're going to try to feature them all right here on WFLA, and that is with WFLA.com/reported. We also want to mention that there are several flash flood warnings. We've got those on WFLA.com at this time. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Paola. There's a lot of pictures coming in, and we're going to try to get as many as we can on the air. Paola's also streaming, I believe, upstairs.
She is. Tampa Oy, our Spanish language partners, they have a stream going as well. So we're trying to cover this at every angle from every base so that you are as informed as you can be. If you happen to lose power through the storm, you can go to our social media accounts. We have all of the radio stations that we are broadcasting on as well. You can live stream on WFLA.com. So we're trying to give you a lot of options to stay informed.
Right, and the information that Brittany was sharing is so, and that Paola was sharing is so important about these officers and emergency vehicles being pulled off of the streets at this point, because we've reached that point, unfortunately, where there's not going to be anyone running around to check on you, whether you made it to where you need to be. You kind of have to be where you are. You have to shelter in place. Hunker down, as they say, bat and hatch, all those cliches you've ever heard. This is the moment when you need to do that. You need to remain safe. Safe for you, safe for family, safe for other people. You just don't know what's out there.
That's right. All of those first responders who had to button up their homes in the previous days, kiss their families goodbye so that they could come out and keep the rest of us safe. So we want to give them every opportunity to remain safe themselves.
Okay, I want to throw up one of the maps and show you where the storm is right now. We can see that it almost looks like it is coming ashore. It is not. I think when it comes ashore, it has to be dictated by the Weather Center, of course, to say, and that's right in the middle of the eye. We're not quite there yet, but you're looking at a Naples pier and some of the water that's been rushing in here. As we pop up these cameras, you just kind of get a great feel for what's happening. You see something's blowing there. What you don't want to see is that pier crashing and falling apart, which can happen in a storm.
And this is obviously south of the Bay Area, the Naples Pier, and we've talked for several days about wherever this storm made landfall, it would be to the south of that area that would see a great deal of surge. I think, Rebecca, you said like 40 miles from the eye would see the most impactful storm surge. Is that right?
Yes, and so it was centered just near Venice, and now it's a little north of that by about 10 miles. Is that so? Starting in southern Sarasota all the way down to Venice.
So that image of the Naples Pier that you see, that's pretty consistent with everything that you would expect.
Absolutely, and it's going to continue going up, and their high tide there's after midnight. Okay. And so they'll most likely get the peak surge before high tide, and then high tide will exacerbate that. And
I was talking about the Doppler radar because I keep looking over, and I just kind of, like everyone else, you kind of watch it, and you just want to see it. I don't know if they want to put it up or not, but basically, you're telling me that to announce that it's actually come ashore, it has to be in the center.
Yeah, the center of the Eyewall, and it's also the Eyewall that is partially obstructed on our radar view because the top of the storm is moving faster than the bottom of the storm at this point. And so it looks like two eyes, basically the surface eye versus the upper level eye. And
so we have the ability to bring that up.
It's the center of the surface eye.
There it is, what you're
and
talking
so if you, can you see that kind of second eye inside the eye? That's the surface eye. So when the center of that surface eye makes landfall, the National Hurricane Center will declare that landfall location and time. And so that'll be 7 to 8 p.m. is what we estimated, and that's looking like it might play out.
And what's happening above this storm, all of that orange?
Oh my goodness, flooding, rainfall. It's been a deluge across parts of Pinellas County. I just was going through some of the videos that our viewers are sending in of their flooded neighborhoods in Newport Richey, all the way down to Tarpon Springs, all the way down to some apartment complexes across Pinellas County. And that's only going to get worse. I don't have anything to promise you in terms of drier weather until about 5 a.m. for those areas, because normally when you're looking at a storm with this type of rainfall that's not evenly distributed, this is a tropical storm, because stronger storms tend to pull all of the rain evenly around them. They have that power, but that's not the case with this system. And so the fact that we're going to get such lopsided areas of rain, all of the convection just zeroed in just to the north of the eye there by about a county and a half, and the way that the eye is moving to the south of those counties, it's sticking them in that pinpoint zone of the heaviest of the rain for hours upon hours upon hours tonight and
What's
into tomorrow
happening
morning.
down there in Manatee County?
Manatee County, they're getting the worst of the winds right now. And so Manatee County is probably starting to experience increasing power outages spreading from the coastline onward. And they're also probably starting to experience that storm surge as the Eyewall is rushing towards them.
Yeah, I think so. We have our reporter Brittany Muller's down in
She's
Manatee
down there in
County, yeah.
Lakewood Ranch.
I do
and-
have our Lakewood Ranch camera pulled up because the rainfall has kind of cleared out from that, but they are looking at still the winds there.
Okay, there's a, you know, earlier we saw it was like a whiteout.
What a
Yeah.
difference that is.
But look at the wind across the lake there. You can see it.
Yeah, and Brittany Muller is inside somewhere. Brittany, you want to pick up on this? We'll talk to you about what you see from your perspective.
Of course, emergency services are now suspended here in Manatee County. There is an extreme wind warning. I want to show you outside what we're looking at right now. We just heard from Manatee County leaders who say emergency calls will be logged and queued based on priority and will be responded to as soon as it's safe to do so. So wherever you are, you should remain inside and shelter at this point, because you could see those trees whipping in the wind. Joining me right now is Jerry. Jerry, thank you so much for joining us. You are a longtime resident on Siesta Key. Tell me a little bit about Hurricane Helene. Did you see any damage?
I stayed in the house and watched the tide rise. And over about 3 hours, by midnight, about 2 feet of water were in the house. And luckily, by 2 a.m., it stopped rising. Following weeks, I just threw everything away. We just took everything, put it in the front yard. And the wind was okay. It was just the water that got us. So this storm scared me because they said a 50-foot surge, and that house will probably blow away.
Unbelievable. I'm so glad that you are here and that you're safe right now. Tell me a little bit about the debris. When you gutted out your home, did you leave that debris on the side? Was that debris picked up?
Yeah, the street is full of debris. About every house has sofas, beds, furniture, you name it. I couldn't believe the amount of stuff that was thrown away, but saltwater ruins everything. Unfortunately, nothing's picked up. I was able to get friends to help, and I got shutters up. So flying debris, I hope, is not going to be a problem at my house, but it is an issue.
Yeah, that's obviously a concern. We know in Manatee County, the county officials were saying that 10 million pounds of that debris from Hurricane Helene had been picked up, but not nearly enough. We're watching the TV as well. We're seeing that eye soon make landfall. What's your reaction knowing that it's here?
My reaction is that I don't have control. Whatever happens, happens, and it's only materialistic property. If it's not there, I'll find a new way to survive. Life goes on.
Life goes on. And I'm so glad that you're safe. You're here with your dog?
And some friends, they got a room for me. I wanted to stay, and they refused. They said, no, we got you a room. You have to leave. So here I am. That's the first time I've evacuated, I think, since Charlie.
Unbelievable. You know, Floridians have a reputation of just staying put. And when you're saying that this is the first time since Charlie, it just gives me the chills knowing that people are listening. People are listening to those evacuations and taking this storm very seriously. Is that right?
I didn't have a choice. When I saw water damage and flood go through, that scared me more than any wind. The power of water is just remarkable.
Now we're here at this hotel in Lakewood Ranch. We're east of 75. The power is starting to flicker, going in and out. There's lightning out there. Winds are picking up. How are you feeling? Obviously an emotional toll it's taking, just knowing that Helene passed through, Milton's here. We know that we're not going to be able to assess the damage. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe later on this week. We don't know. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. The worst hurricane I went through was Andrew. I was in medical school in Miami, and Andrew, I stayed in the house, but the neighbor's house got entirely almost blown away. In our house, we stayed in the minivan in the garage, and the house got damaged, but I had a case of water in the minivan, and it just was wind and powerful wind. So I feel like I'm not afraid of wind or rain. It's just the flooding that scared me.
That is definitely a concern. My grandparents were in Fort Lauderdale during Hurricane Andrew, and they rode out the storm in their home, and by a miracle they survived, but everything was really flattened. It was terrifying. Tell me a little bit about the community coming together in this hotel. 11,000 people evacuated their homes or in shelters, but there's so many more that listen to those evacuation orders that are in hotels, family, friends' homes right now. Talk to me about people coming together during a crisis.
It's been really nice. Like you said, I have a dog, I have a German Shepherd, and usually people are afraid of them. But this hotel has been remarkable. Everybody in the lobby, friends, I don't even know people. They're talking to us like we've known each other forever. So I've been really welcomed here, and it's been nice.
Jerry, what do you expect to go home to tomorrow?
Some flooding and water and debris and junk. And hopefully, to be honest with you, I had a boat, and the boat was in the backyard. And I hope it's still there.
So many people feel the same way. But again, materials, their items. I'm so glad that you're safe. Jerry, is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
I just hope everybody's safe and okay, and we wish for a better tomorrow. You know, everybody take care.
Thank you so much, Jerry, for your time. We're glad that you're safe. We're glad that you're here with us. And obviously, we're inside right now, just riding out the storm. Like so many of you, we're keeping safe, and we're hoping that you're keeping safe as well. For now, reporting live in Manatee County, Brittany Muller, 8 on your side.
All right, Brittany, thank you very much. Joined right now by my colleague, Stacey Scheibel, who has been monitoring things behind the scenes. And I think we're going to switch gears and go to Rebecca again.
We absolutely are. We want to watch that track because now we're within that hour of when we expect landfall. So let's go to meteorologist Rebecca Berry for the latest.
All right, and so we are watching carefully for any wobbles, of course, any changes in course at the last minute, because sometimes storms are a little tricky like that. They do make that last minute jaunt one way or the other. And I'm hoping we've seen our last surprise with that 10-mile to the north jaunt, moving from a Sarasota center of the track to a Bradenton center of the track. And there's nothing to indicate that that would change at this point. Now, all of our areas experiencing rain at this point, the tornadoes have basically moved on, which is good news. And so what we're seeing out there with the latest 120-mile-per-hour sustained winds, it's 35 miles west-southwest of Sarasota, Florida at this point. And so it's moving to the northeast at 15 miles per hour. So that's what moves it to the north of Sarasota in terms of the official landfall. But when it comes to impacts, they're going to be the same in Bradenton and Sarasota. The storm surge may be a little higher in Sarasota because the Eyewall is a little bit closer to that Bradenton area. But it's going to maintain Category 1 hurricane strength as it crosses the state. That means the Eyewall is going to move over Polk County. It's going to move over Orlando. We're still going to see hurricane force winds over along the east coast of the state. And so it's going to make about an 80-mile path wide swath of hurricane force winds across the state. That's going to result in power outages, lots of damaged and downed trees. And we're looking at flooding in 2 different areas. We're looking at flooding from rainfall to the north of the eye. We're looking at flooding from storm surge to the south of the eye. This is our wobble tracker, and this gives us the first indication that we're seeing something change. And so this is the path that the system has taken. This is the current location. It's still Category 3. And this is the center line of the forecast track for the National Hurricane Center. And so when we see the satellite and the radar images not quite line up with the center of that track, that lets us know that something's going to be a little different. And so right now it does look like a slightly southern wobble. The northern edge of the track is along the northern edge of the Eyewall is along the track, but the eye itself is all to the south of the track. And so we may still end up with a more Sarasota-ish landfall, but this is only about a 10-mile difference here. And so we're looking at anywhere between Sarasota and Bradenton for that actual landfall, which is the center of the surface eye, because we're kind of looking at the upper level eye right here, and then the surface eye is running a little bit further behind. The top of the storm is moving faster than the bottom of the storm at this point. And that's pretty typical once portions of the storm get over the land, because they've been out over the open Gulf, nice warm water fueling them, but also basically a friction-free environment. And now the surface parts of the storm are moving over trees, moving over buildings, moving over hills, creating a lot of friction. So that slows the surface of the storm down a bit, while the upper levels of the storm continue to race on in that more friction-free environment. And so we're seeing that wobble looking like more of a Sarasota track. This is River Watch. So this is out in front of the station. It's the Hillsborough River. It feeds into the bay, and you can see here the water still feeding out. And so we expect that along the current trajectory. The nightmare scenario for the Tampa Bay area would be a jaunt to the north that would bring bring the onshore winds into the bay, we would see the water rushing the other way and also getting much, much higher very quickly. I think what some people don't really understand about storm surge is how quick it is. It goes from not everything's okay because you're in the middle of a hurricane, but this is all manageable and this is all survivable, to water rushing in your home, water rushing onshore and not receding. And it just keeps going up and keeps going up and keeps going up. If you talk to storm survivors from some of the last serious storms that had to run up into their attic or had to run up into their second floor, it's very, very fast. This has been one of our better cameras, and the rain has cleared out from Lakewood Ranch, but these are the Eyewall winds. The surface Eyewall is moving onshore in Manatee and Sarasota counties, and we've got whitecaps out on the lake there. And so it's just been incredibly windy there. These wind gauges don't pick up on the severe winds, so please don't just ignore that number. I'm keeping all of the stats up because the rainfall numbers they're okay. When you have this much wind, it's hard to get an accurate gauge of rainfall, because, oh man, our Manatee Skycam went down. That one was of the marina. And so we're starting to see those power outages. We're starting to see the internet outages, and that's going to continue, unfortunately. We were talking about the rainfall to the north of the eye. This is what it looks like. Very heavy radar estimated rainfalls in coastal Manatee County, moving up into Pinellas County. But when you look at what we're going to see moving forward, it's really a swath and it's about a 20-mile long swath, 20-mile wide swath from Pinellas through northern Hillsborough and into Pasco County, where we're going to see upwards of another foot of rain. And so we're going to see rainfall flooding in these areas, because when you get a foot of rain, it all runs into the low-lying areas, and it's going to run there very quickly, and we're not going to have time to drain. And so in between now and about 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, it will continue to rain as heavily as it is right now in Pinellas County, in northern Hillsborough County. We're also sampling the winds on the backside of the eye. So the eastern edge of the eye, the northeastern edge of the eye here, these are the upper level winds. And so they're packing a punch in terms of wind speeds that are going to be moving on after the eye does. So this is the eye right here. And so we've sampled some of those very heavy wind. The heaviest of the winds are on the northeastern and upper levels of the eye here. So that's all going to move onshore within the next 2 to 3 hours. And so the upper levels of the eye have moved onshore. This is the lower level starting to make its way onshore. And so that makes sense why we just lost the Manatee camera there, because that's those potential sustained winds of 120 miles per hour with gusts of even higher than that. And so the areas that will experience that are Bradenton southward down, maybe Northport could see those sustained winds as well. Once the winds start to make their way onshore, we'll see some wind gusts upwards of 100 miles per hour across the central parts of our area. We could see it in southern Pinellas, could see it in Hillsborough, could see it in Polk, definitely could see it in Manatee, Sarasota, and Hardy counties as this system continues to race on. And this is Max Defender 8, so we're getting updates by the minute of this very heavy rainfall. And this is the rain that I'm worried about right here for flooding. But we're talking 10 to 18 inches of rain total, but it's 10 to 15 feet of storm surge to the south of the eye that we're looking at from Bradenton southward. And so especially Fort Myers is probably feeling more surge than they thought they would with this more southern landfall, because it's driving all of that water down into Punta Gorda and Bonita Springs. Areas like Matlacha that were very hard hit with previous hurricane are now seeing insult to injury, with Milton bringing 10 to 15 feet of storm surge possible. The only good news is that Milton's moving very, very quickly. Zooming in on some of the heavier areas of rain, now the heaviest of the rain has shifted past Sarasota and Bradenton, and that's good. Now they're experiencing those hurricane level winds, just like our Lakewood Ranch camera we just looked at. It wasn't raining heavily there, but we could tell how windy it was. But you get the wind and the rain mixed in Pinellas, as well as Hillsborough, parts of Polk County, and Pasco County now. And so our I-4 counties and northward, just in the middle of a deluge. I don't know if you were woken up by the rain early this morning like I was. It was raining really hard for a little while. It's going to do that for hours upon hours upon hours for these counties. And so that's what we're anticipating moving forward. So let's go ahead and move on in your forecast, because we do have a high risk of excessive rain. This is the additional rainfall. So on top of what we've already seen, where we're already looking at those radar estimated rainfall totals of 8 or 9 inches, we're expecting another 8 to 12 inches of rain on that swath that we were talking about from Pinellas County northward into northern Hillsborough, into eastern Pasco, and Hernando. Eastern Hernando could get in on that as well. The theme park's getting lots of rain in Orlando as well, but to the south of that eye, almost nothing. We're talking 4 inches of rain, maybe 5 inches of rain to the south of the eye. And so that's certainly a manageable amount of rain. But along the coastline there is where we see the storm surge. I like to check in on our current wind speeds, although they never really reflect how hard the winds get. It's just kind of a glimpse of what the wind speeds look like right now, sustained in that 40 to 50 mile per hour range, starting to see some 66 mile per hour wind gusts in St. Pete, but we've seen some higher than that earlier. This is our in-house forecast model showing that landfall in between 7 and 8 p.m. this evening, and it could be a Sarasota landfall at this point on the in-house model. This is updated since the last time I showed this last hour. And so it did shift it a little bit further south back to where the track had it earlier this morning, right over Sarasota. And so potentially splitting the difference for landfall between Bradenton and Sarasota, but no huge net effect on that based on or for storm surge to the south or north of that. So that's what we're looking at in terms of landfall, guys. We will get a notification when the National Hurricane Center declares landfall, and we'll let you know when that is.
All right, Rebecca, thank you very much for that update. I know people want to see the maps constantly. They're looking for the areas that they live in to see what they are in for and if it's the same in other places.
And exactly where it's going to make landfall, that's the big question.
Polk County is very much inland, as you know, but lakes and rivers there are rising from all the rain. We also know that some of the roadways are becoming impassable in places.
So we're going to go to Polk County now. News Channel 8's Georgia MacArthur is there. Georgia, I know you moved because of some of the bad conditions. It's really coming down there. Update us, please.
Yes, I moved from the Mulberry area to here downtown in Lakeland. As you can see, the winds are really packing the punch, as well as that rain has started to pick up here. But as we were driving throughout Polk County, we did see quite a few roads that were impassable. We're also hearing that there are a few power outages in the Mulberry area. We do know that the east part of Polk County at one point was under a couple of tornado watches. But I'm going to show you the downtown area here as the wind gusts start to kind of pick up. We are still seeing some of that rain come down very heavily, but it appears to be like a ghost town here throughout Polk County. We see that most people are heeding those evacuations. We spent time at a nearby hotel where we spoke to quite a few people who came from Pinellas County area who said that they came here inland to try to get away from these conditions, as well as we talked to a few people who lived in mobile home parks that are, evacuating at local hotels because they know how serious these conditions can get as they start to deteriorate. Stacey and Jen.
Georgia, thank you so much. I continue to get updates and texts and questions from my friends and family in the Lakeland area. So while I'm sorry for Georgia to have to stand out in that rain, it is very helpful for folks to see, oh, yes, okay, it's here, it's coming. And we are starting to see power outages, I'm told, in the Lakeland area as well. But we want to show you some video. This is from Rob T. in Northport, much further south of Lakeland, as heavy winds continue to sweep through that area. Rob says his neighbor has blue tarp on their home, and the winds almost blew that away.
And we want to show you some security footage from a home in Bel Air over in Pinellas County. You can see that storm just shake the camera. It's bending that palm tree. And these are all videos sent in by our viewers by going to WFLA.com/report it. If you have some good video, it's very easy to send it to us and we'll get it on the air for you. I know it's getting dark now. It's going to be harder to have video. And of course, we want you to stay safe. Don't put yourself in harm's way to get pictures or video.
Yeah, this is video from Tampa over at Carillon Park. Justin Keeney sent us this video of the winds just rocking the street signs in that neighborhood, and that is going to be a common sight across the Bay Area tonight.
And don't forget, if the power goes out and you can't watch on TV, you can still tune into our radio partners. We are expecting some widespread power outages. Several stations around the Bay Area are partnering with us to keep you informed. They're on your screen right now.
Our team coverage continues right now. We have reporters staged across the Bay Area monitoring the conditions. One person we've been watching is Kenny Morales. Are the lights still on behind you? Is that what I'm witnessing?
Yeah, you're in Seminole, so that might be a good sign, although I imagine you're undercover.
Exactly right. So the lights are still on in the house right now, but I think the light you're seeing is the little camera light that we have being held by our cameraman extraordinaire, Bob Hansen. But yeah, like you mentioned, I'm live here in Seminole, and I'll let Bob kind of pan over here. And I was talking about it earlier with you guys. The conditions here, they kind of deteriorated quickly, but they've been in waves, right? We get a band here of rain and wind that would go bad for about 5 or 10 minutes. Then it kind of calmed down. You'd see the trees weren't, flooding around as much. The rain was a little lighter. That's pretty much gone to the wayside. It's been a constant flow of heavy rain and really strong winds over the past 30 minutes or so, I would say. And we've just recently noticed, we've started to hear those kind of howls, those roars of those really strong hurricane winds that you hear from powerful major hurricanes, right? I do want to say I got a couple of updates from Pinellas County officials. Officials said they have more than 11,000 people hunkered down in shelters around the Pinellas County area. Really encouraging to hear that so many people have heeded those evacuation warnings and found a safer place. Also, a Pinellas County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Hi, we have just lost Kenny Morales. We apologize. That's going to be happening a lot throughout the evening. We want our crews to stay safe, of course. And now we welcome in meteorologist Rebecca Berry. Everybody really wondering about where it's actually going to make landfall.
I think it's going to split the difference between Sarasota and Bradenton based on the current radar, how it looks. And, you know, that's probably not going to mitigate too much of a change in the effects that we told people to expect. It would lower the surge for Bradenton just a little bit because they wouldn't get very long of an onshore wind there. And it wouldn't change the forecast very much for the areas parts south of there.
Where it is starting to have the biggest impacts, folks are starting to lose power. Kenny is among the lucky folks in Seminole who still have power. I'm looking at some of the outage maps. Duke Energy has 74,000 people just in the Pinellas County area. And then also TECO is reporting 62,000 people without power this hour. I'm kind of speculating at this point. I think a lot of that probably has to do with the high winds that we're seeing.
Yeah. And so 60 miles per hour is kind of a threshold that we use for that because that starts to knock down branches and compromise structures and that sort of thing. So whenever we see swaths of 60 mile per hour wind gusts, we actually have a power outage tracker, and that's what it's solely focused on, is when the winds go above that 60 mile per hour range.
And we know all the power companies in our area were bracing for this. So FPNL, Duke, TECO, they've all got multiple crews out there. They will try to restore things as soon as possible. But we've seen in big storms like this, a Cat 3 major hurricane, you could be without power for an extended period of time. Not everyone, but
yes. And
some.
Jen and I were talking about this, I think, a couple of days ago, the way that different power stations work. If you're in a smaller group of power outages, you might be addressed later. They try to address the greatest need first in terms of restoring power. And so the more widespread areas might get the attention first. And I feel like you experienced this with Helene a little bit.
I did.
You and only a couple of neighbors were without power. And so you were one of the last to come back on.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, too, when you look at this, I'm looking at the map behind you, if they want to put that back up, the reflectivity map, where do you think we're going to see the strongest winds and for how long?
And so from Bradenton southward along the coast of Manatee and Sarasota counties, you're going to get two durations of the highest winds. The first is occurring now as the eastern Eyewall moves over the coastline of Manatee and Sarasota counties. So the highest winds are closest to the eye. Now, the second half of that eye, the western edge of the wall, has some of the strongest winds within the storm. Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baradelli was sampling those upper level winds over 100 miles an hour. And so a lot of times as they mix down, they're not quite that strong, but we could see sustained winds of 120 miles per hour along Manatee and Sarasota's coastline.
That's why they evacuated all those folks in mobile homes, even if they were in more interior areas and not in a flood-prone area, because those manufactured mobile homes cannot withstand those winds.
Yes, and your homes are built to specifications. Modern homes are. Now, very old homes didn't have codes and that sort of a thing, and you may not have the same robust structure in some of the older homes, but mobile homes are not built to withstand these types of winds. And so that's why they call for evacuations of RVs, mobile homes, modular homes, and those sorts of things, because those are where we see the most roofs ripped off.
Yeah.
You know, those carports that come attached to them. It doesn't take much wind to take those carports at all, and a lot of them are attached to the roofs, and it just peels it away. And so we don't want someone riding out the second half of the storm without a roof.
No doubt.
And those sheds and things in the backyard, they're also not built to
Yeah,
withstand.
sheds and secondary structures oftentimes aren't as maintained as your home is or as robustly built in the first place.
Well, maybe we can check back on the wobble tracker here in a few minutes, but right now we want to ensure that we can continue to bring you the coverage that you're expecting. So we're going to have much more on the storm coming up. Jen.
Yeah, actually, the way that we are ensuring our coverage is able to be brought to you, we have a secondary location that's up in Wesley Chapel, and we have our team up there, our backup team, Josh Benson and meteorologist Eric Stone, who are standing by in that location. And guys, you are monitoring that wobble tracker as we speak.
Yeah, we're going to bring it to you right now, and we don't have to wait for it. So yes, thank you guys. We can finally hear you, which is great. It's been a challenge to just piece by piece get this up and running the way we want the studio to work. So as part of a storm that's expected, but we got it finally,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Feeling
we
a little
do.
bit better.
And you know what? We're getting really, really close to landfall. And the good
Let's go
news
and take
is
a look.
with the wobble tracker, we got nervous here with this wobble because it was moving more to the north, and we thought,
Right.
if it continues that, we're going to get a lot of water in the bay. But
look
what
at that
happened?
dip. That's
Right here,
unbelievable.
we had this little wobble to the east, and then another little wobble to the east. So I actually think this may move a little bit south of this track, right around SRQ Sarasota Airport. But either way, that is going to spare over 1 million people that live in and around the bay from that storm surge.
So you're thinking landfall right in this region?
I'm thinking landfall right around Sarasota, Manatee County border, right near the airport.
What time are we talking about? Because right now,
It's really close. It's after 7, so I'd say
7:25.
within the hour. Yeah,
Within the hour.
around 8 o'clock or so.
okay, so within the hour, expected landfall. Now, we're obviously 20 miles inland from you guys who are on the coast or in downtown Tampa. What kind of effects, given the fact that it is south, and obviously we want to talk about Sarasota because they're going to feel a lot more.
Right.
But for downtown and all these people that would have been affected by storm surge, no storm surge at this point.
No storm surge, but notice, see these deep reds to the north of the storm. This is extremely heavy rain. We're talking a good 4 inches an hour, and we're going to be in that here in Wesley Chapel too. All of Hillsborough County, Pasco County, and points eastward. So we're looking at 12 to 18 inches of rain. Same thing in downtown Tampa. And the winds are going to be borderline hurricane force, at least sustained, and well over 80 to 90 miles per hour in the gust category.
Okay. So as you can see, we finally got our maps and our models set up here, guys, so we can actually monitor it along with you back in the studio. I can open the lines up so we can actually talk to each other, which is nice. Have you had any issues back in Tampa downtown, or is everything pretty smooth sailing? Because we're trying to be the overflow in the event that there is problems downtown.
Well, we like that you're part of the coverage, period. And I did want to ask, we've been good down here so far. Let's hope it holds. But Eric, can you explain a little bit about that storm being so top heavy now and how maybe that recently impacted it and could further impact it?
Well, earlier it was really top heavy. It kind of leaned it a little bit further to the north. And I do think that might have accounted for this northern wobble and even the one to the south that you can't see. But again, this is being picked up by the jet and riding along a front. So it can't really move too much further to the north. So again, that's huge news
you run out of space
for the Tampa Bay. That's right. There's not much more space left. So again, we are expecting the water to continue to come out of Tampa Bay. I know you have a camera that's aimed right on the Hillsborough River.
Yes, right at my desk, actually. I set up a time-lapse camera, so it'll be interesting to see the water levels. I know you guys have been taking live shots from our tower cam. But
yeah, so the water's being taken out of here. But I know Stacey and I have been in contact the last several days, and this is what I really have thought would happen, that this would move south and be right around that Sarasota, Manatee County line.
You have been calling that for several days, I will say, but those wobbles make a lot of people nervous for obvious reasons.
Hey guys, while we have you, I want to ask you, because we're getting a lot of messages from the folks up in Pasco County who are obviously just getting hammered right now by those heavy winds and the strong rains. Some folks still do have power in that area, but they did just get word that they should shelter in place and that emergency responders will not be out on the roadways anymore. They're pulling all those first responders back in for their own safety. And do you get the sense that folks up there are heeding the warnings?
Well, based on we're not getting much intel based on the people in outlying counties. What we're seeing is more people that we're stationed with. I mean, we have some of the reporters that have come in. Eileen Natchik was here. Brianda Villegas is here. So she's kind of getting some of those stories and bringing them back to us. But what we're hearing is, yes, I think they are heeding the warning, especially with the people we've talked to here. They've already been through Helene. That was their big wake-up call. A lot of them who were in, like, St. Pete Beach and the beach coastline community said, we're not going to do it. Our house has already been either affected or destroyed from Helene, so we're going inland as much as we can just to get out of town. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're going all the way up to Tallahassee or down to Miami. These people just need to get inland 20, 30 miles to get out of this mess.
But we're still going to get a lot of flooding rain. So low-lying areas, if you are inland, if you flood on a rainy season day, there's going to be a lot of inland flooding.
Yeah. But the mood here, I think, guys, is pretty good. I think a lot of people are positive. They're happy they left. We're watching the parking lot to make sure the flooding isn't too bad. I mean, we're seeing, 12 to 18 inches of rain we can expect.
Our cars are getting pressure washed right now.
Pressure washed. Right. But everything is much better than they were before. So hopefully the signal will stay strong and we can talk to you guys a lot more.
Sounds good. Great to see you guys. Thank you very much. And of course, Sarasota expected to see major storm surge. And right now, wind gusts really starting to pick up down there.
News Channel 8's Nicole Rogers is in downtown Sarasota for us right now. I'm happy to see that you've moved inside. I was getting worried about you.
Jen, we have definitely seen these weather conditions deteriorate. So we have come inside for our own safety. And what I can tell you is it looks like a fireworks show right now in downtown Sarasota. We are seeing transformer after transformer blowing. And we even at the hotel we're staying at just heard them come over the intercom and say, if you get stuck in an elevator because the power went out, it's very important you can press the emergency button. But right now, so far we've had reported here in Sarasota, 90 miles per hour gusts and 60-mile-per-hour sustained winds. Why is that so important? Because the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office said after 45 miles per hour of sustained winds, deputies will not be responding to emergencies or calls for service because it's simply not safe. And that's why we evacuated the areas of A, B, and Z, all of those zones ahead of time. And they were driving through those barrier islands and they were over the intercoms telling people it might get to the point where if you need help, someone can't save you. And we might be to that point right now. As I said, those 60-mile-per-hour sustained winds, they said they would not come out after 45 miles per hour. So we will continue to keep you up to date on everything going on here in Sarasota County. But right now, we're really starting to see the brunt of that weather, the worst that we've gotten throughout the day. We're starting to see the wind really pick up. I don't know if it's as much water and more wind that we're probably seeing these transformers blowing, but I wouldn't count it off that within the next hour or two, we're going to have a lot of people out of power. My story here in Sarasota is going to be a lot different. What we're going through here, what people are going through here, but we will, of course, keep you informed every step of the way. Live in Sarasota, Nicole Rogers, 8 on your.
All right. Thanks, Nicole. We are waiting, by the way. The governor is about to have a press conference, so we will go to that when we get it. But we're also keeping a close eye on the Hillsborough River right here in downtown Tampa. During Helene, many neighborhoods and roads greatly impacted by flooding and came close in a lot of spots, and a lot of houses, of course, as you saw along West Shore, wiped out in South Tampa.
They were. We had water here under the station. We're right along the Hillsborough River, and we had about 4 feet of flood surge come over the banks of the river. News Channel 8's Ty Russell is live for us right here at the base of our television station in downtown Tampa. We are in evacuation A. We have a fortress of a facility down here, but we wanted to know what it looked like there. We were prepared for a terrible storm surge had this storm made landfall a little further north.
And thank goodness, Jen and Stacy, that water is continuing to move outward. Now, I know it's dark, but we're going to try something. We're going to try to, I'll step out of the way. We're going to try to turn up the gain here on the camera. So excuse us if the picture looks a little fuzzy, but we want to just give you a clearer picture of what we are seeing. Again, it is dark, but this is a look at the Hillsborough River. That water is continuing to move outward. But why is that also important? It's because here in downtown Tampa, like our awesome meteorologists were saying, we're expecting a lot of rainfall, especially in the Eyewall of Milton. So as long as this water continues to move out, that makes business owners and some of the neighbors who live along this area, even though most of them should be out or sheltering elsewhere on higher ground, but that makes them feel easier. So when they return to this area, they will be able to say, okay, I still have my home. I still have my business. I don't have to go back to FEMA, because many of these folks were afraid that they were going to have to go back to FEMA and file even more claims because many people are dealing with claims from Debbie, claims from Helene, and then Milton. But as we look up at downtown Tampa, you can see the power is still on. That is a good sign, although we are expecting that to change the later on we get into the night. You can see that it is raining right now. In the parking garages, you can see some of that steam when it falls. You can see some of the rainfall there. It's been raining sometimes heavy, sometimes a little softer, but we have been experiencing this continued rainfall for the last several hours. So I'm pretty sure some of the neighborhoods in this area are definitely concerned about flooding. And I know outside the camera view, which you guys can't see because we are sheltered in a little corner here to try to protect us and our equipment. But I've been looking at some of the major roads around downtown Tampa. I haven't been seeing many cars, thank goodness, traveling. I'll see, of course, first responders travel throughout the area. no lights on, no emergencies as far as this area, as far as I can see in this area. But right now, the winds are slightly calmer. Again, we're expecting that to change as we move into the night. But so far, so good. I've been monitoring reports with Tampa officials and Hillsborough officials. Again, they're dealing with some of these shelters that are at full capacity. But I'm going to send it back to you guys because Governor Ron DeSantis is getting ready to speak.
All right. Thank you, Ty. We're going to take a listen in right now.
It's hitting the Gulf Coast prior to high tide, which we hope will help mitigate some of the storm surge. There isn't, you see it already developing, and there's going to continue to be storm surge both on the West Coast and eventually on the East Coast of Florida. And we're going to see a significant amount of rainfall on the northern part of the storm. There's already been 116 tornado warnings with 19 confirmed touchdowns throughout the state, 9 flash flood warnings, and 4 additional flood watches, with many, many more to come. Numerous counties have reported tornado damage. Peak storm surge is predicted to be between 5 and 13 feet, depending on where you are on the Gulf Coast of Florida. As of right now, the peak storm surge looks to be between the Charlotte-Lee County line up until Anna Maria Island in Manatee County. Prior to landfall, the state completed nearly 2,000 missions. Generators were sent to shelters. We have massive amounts of fuel reserves that are staged and ready to go, millions of gallons of gas. When the ports reopen, Florida Highway Patrol will be standing by to escort fuel trucks to service stations so that people will have access to fuel as they return to their homes. The Florida Department of Transportation is staged and ready to go as soon as the storm passes. They have 156 bridge inspectors, which will go to clear the bridges, 402 cut and toss personnel, and over 1,000 generators and 350 pieces of heavy equipment and trucks. We have massive amounts of search and rescue equipment and personnel standing by. And we hope that there's not a big need for that, but we're prepared for that. And that's not just our state and local. It's also our National Guard, our State Guard. We have about 9,000 National Guard personnel between Florida and other states. We also have Florida Highway Patrol, Fish and Wildlife, Department of Law Enforcement, and of course our Florida State Guard. There was a lot of questions about pre-staging linemen, which is our practice here in Florida, given that you have a lot of linemen working for Hurricane Helene in places like Georgia and North Carolina. I'm happy to report that we have over 50,000 linemen that are in the state of Florida. And as soon as it's safe to do so, they will commence with power restoration. We're already seeing power outages. You're going to continue to see a lot more power outages over the course of tonight and into tomorrow morning. Now, at this point, it's too dangerous to evacuate safely, so you have to shelter in place and just hunker down. Category 3 storm for most places in Florida, particularly newer construction, likely the building is going to be able to withstand it. But if you start to get in a situation where trees are snapping, power's popping, you do have to treat it like a tornado. And then if you are in a tornado warning, that's a duck and cover in a place that's safe in your structure. Those can be very, very dangerous, even if you are inside in cover. Stay inside and stay off the roads. Floodwaters and rushing storm surge are very dangerous. And I would say that's even more so in spite of everything the state did to help these local communities hit by Helene remove a lot of debris. And they did move a lot of debris over the last 72 hours. You're going to have new debris created, and you still have some of that old debris in some of those places. So there's going to be hazards in the storm surge and in the flood waters. Stay put until the storm is passed. If you are in Sarasota, Manatee, some of those areas where the eye of the storm is going, it may be where things calm down for a minute. Just understand that means you're in the eye. It's going to go back and get really nasty very soon. So don't go outdoors until it is confirmed safe. You can listen to your local emergency management officials about that one. Power outages are going to happen, as I mentioned. So please, if you're using a generator, make sure that you're using it safely. Do not run the generator inside your home. That can be fatal. Make sure it's outside the home at a safe distance from windows and doorways. If you see dangerous conditions, please report those to your local authorities so that they can help protect people and mitigate it. So the storm is here. It's time for everybody to hunker down. I know we've got massive amounts of resources that have been prepared for this storm. People are tired because of having to deal with Hurricane Helene, and yet all I've seen is people just dig deep inside and say, we're not going to be denied, we're going to get the job done. So I really appreciate everybody that's worked so hard on the heels of Helene to prepare for this storm and to be ready to go. And you will see that in action very shortly as this storm passes. Okay, Kevin Guthrie.
Thank you, Governor, for leading us through this. Appreciate your support. Conditions across the state continue to deteriorate as Hurricane Milton approaches landfall on Florida's. No more Michael. No, sir. No, sir. As Hurricane Milton approaches landfall on Florida's west coast. Many areas are already experiencing life-threatening storm surge or life-threatening tornadoes. Please make sure if a tornado warning comes in, especially on our east coast of Florida, we have certainly had a lot of tornadic activity over there with confirmed radar signature, confirmed tornadoes. We do have Virginia Task Force 1, Ohio Task Force 1, and Miami Task Force 1 going into those areas to help with those structural collapses that have happened. We're receiving somewhere in the neighborhood, this is really, really rough numbers right now, but about 125 homes that have been destroyed, most of them mobile homes and senior communities. So we're trying to get into Florida's most vulnerable to make sure they're taken care of. If you have not already left, as I just said, as the governor just said, you need to stay inside, stay safe, and stay put. Make sure that you're getting to a central area of your home, that you're getting as low as you possibly can. That is, if you have a single-story residence and no storm surge, you want to get as low as you possibly can. I had this question asked to me earlier. Do I go to the bottom of the house if I got storm surge? The answer is no. If you've got 2 floors, you need to go to the lowest part of the 2nd floor to escape the storm surge. Please do not. If you have storm surge coming in, please just do not go to the lowest level of your home. Do not attempt to leave your home or drive during the storm. Roads may be flooded, blocked by debris, or have down power lines. Please do not risk it. If you hear, as the governor said, if you hear trees snapping, that means that there is going to be flying debris. You should seek shelter immediately and treat it as if it's a tornado. Protect yourself from flying debris by putting household items such as pillows, heavy coats, blankets on top of you. There may be a point where you think the storm is over. If it goes from absolutely horrible and terrible to absolutely nothing, then you are most likely in the eye of the tornado. Please stay in place. Do not come out. We are anticipating power outages, as the governor's already mentioned, with this storm. Take time now, if you still have power, to keep those electronic devices plugged in and keep the charge full. If you lose power and are going to use a generator for backup power, please use it safely. You've heard the governor and myself say this. Keep it 20 feet away from the doors and windows of your home. Make sure you wait 20 minutes for it to cool down before you refuel it. Make sure it's on a clean, dry surface. And then be sure to have a carbon monoxide monitor in your home. After the storm has passed your area, it is critical that you listen to local authorities for guidance on when it is safe to go outside or to return home. Do not venture out. Hazardous materials, debris, and flooding could still be present. Do not attempt to clean up the debris by yourself, especially fallen trees or power lines. If you see a dangerous condition, please report them to your local authorities utilizing your 911 lines or non-emergency lines. Residents needing information can continue to call our state assistance information line, which will be open for most likely weeks. That number is 1-800-342-3557. That's 1-800-342-3557. Please follow the agency on X and Instagram at FLSERT and on Facebook at FDEM. That is the best way to go and catch up on latest up-to-date information from the division. If you do not have access to that, but you have access to the internet, please make sure you go to floridadisaster.org/updates. Floridians, we are with you. We will be with you. The state of Florida is leading the way on this charge. Please know that we're coming as fast as we possibly can. There's going to be places that we just cannot get to until the winds die down. But as I've already mentioned, there are strong winds. There are banding rains. but we have the men and women of Florida Task Force 1 out of Miami-Dade, as well as members from the Ohio and Virginia Task Force going into harm's way to help you out. We will continue to do that all night long. I will be here throughout the night along with my team. Governor, it's been a pleasure working with you to this point, but I also want to say thank you for your leadership. And I know that you're not going to go anywhere anytime soon. And I appreciate your leadership. Thank you, sir.
So we are staged with massive amounts of search and rescue assets, not just with the cities and counties and their considerable resources, all the state assets for our state agencies and National Guard, as well as urban search and rescue teams. And so we will be ready to help people who are in harm's way. And hopefully we don't have a lot. I know a lot of people did heed the call to leave, but that will be a priority to save lives. We also have a record number of people there for the restoration of power. These linemen, people love seeing the linemen coming in on the interstate. It's a great sight. They will get to work, get their power resumed as quick as possible. And then we have massive amounts of fuel on standby that we can use, but we also want to make sure these ports get up and running. I mean, we'll see what the damage is to Manatee and to Tampa. We have been discussing, and Kevin and his team have been discussing with our federal partners like the Army Corps and some of these agencies, some expectations about getting these ports back. And I think there's a difference between kind of Florida expectations, which is like we get this stuff done quick, and maybe how the federal bureaucracies have typically worked. But I think that we have had very good conversations. I think there is a sense of urgency with some of the federal agencies as well. But we want to get these ports back open as quickly as possible. We're going to have to assess some damage. Now, the track of this storm, the fact that it is Sarasota, perhaps the Port of Tampa is not going to take a major hit like it would have if it was a direct impact, but we'll see. Manatee is probably going to be a little bit closer to where it's getting some of the big impact, but we think it's really important that all services are be able to resume, and we have contingencies to be able to get fuel in where it needs to go, but it'd sure be a lot easier if we just get that coming into the ports. And so those are all going to be priorities from here on out. So if you are watching this, just hunker down. If you're in the path of this storm, it's dangerous outside. There's going to be a lot of hazards. Even when it passes, if there's floodwaters, be very careful about any of that. Help is on the way. We're going to get everyone back, get everyone up on their feet again, and we'll mitigate the damage as best we can.
You have been listening to Governor Ron DeSantis and emergency management officials in Tallahassee. A couple of key takeaways. Bottom line, you have to be where you are going to be for this storm. Shelter in place. But they assure us that the cavalry is not coming. It's here. It's staged. It's ready. FHP ready to escort fuel tanker trucks into the hardest hit areas to get you the gas that you need to get back from your evacuation zones into your homes. 50,000 power personnel from all over the country here, staged and ready to start restoring power. We're seeing those power outages right now. But again, the warning, the governor said it himself, the storm surge threat is from Anna Maria Island south to that Charlotte-Levy County area.
And you know, more interestingly, I think right now is that we are just minutes from landfall. And I have to tell you, our friend Jeff Berardelli has lost his voice. He is efforting to do the best he can.
Yeah.
You've been pointing out a few things to me. We are just moments probably from landfall, and it looks like it's going to be right there where you expect it, kind of near Bradenton, Sarasota.
Yeah, exactly. So we think this is going to hit Bradenton, give or take, near the SRQ airport. There's some things you should know. First of all, the water is going out of Tampa Bay right now. In fact, we're going to take a look at that shot right there. You can see it flowing down river here, partly due to the water, just kind of going out. If this storm had come just 20 miles further north, we'd see the opposite. So it looks like the Port of Tampa and Tampa Bay is going to be spared. But I do want to mention one thing. The backside of this storm is much stronger than the front side. We've already seen 90-mile-an-hour wind gusts in St. Petersburg downtown. The backside is going to really start pushing that water back towards the coast. So I think that we're going to end up seeing some surge later tonight. It's not going to be nearly as bad as with the storm, but this backside wind is really strong. All right, so take a look at some of these wind gusts. And again, I apologize for my voice right here. I'm going to do a little bit of weather, and then I'm going to toss it over to Rebecca soon. All right, so at the airport in Sarasota, 90-mile-an-hour wind gusts, St. Petersburg, an 89-mile-an-hour wind gust, Northport, 78, and at the Clearwater St. Pete Airport, around 60 miles an hour. All right, Here's a look at your max defender rate radar right there. And, you know, we talked about this yesterday and the day before that all the heavy rain would be on the north side. This is really a top heavy storm. And there has just been a flash flood warning issued for a huge area. It's in effect basically for all of Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, down to Manatee County because of how much heavy rain we've seen. Right now, you can see that the northern Eyewall is right over downtown St. Pete, right over Riverview, and that heavy rain is riding its way north. And this storm is heading in that direction. So it's going to be a while before these areas dry out. We're going to be in heavy rain, and it's going to move across northern parts of Polk County as well. So just be aware of that. Now, you can see the backside of this system kind of moving through Tampa Bay right now and going to be moving over St. Pete and probably eventually moving over South Tampa. These are really strong winds. Now, I sampled them 10 minutes ago, so but these areas of yellow are likely winds that are gusting to about 100 miles an hour, not too far off the ground. So don't be surprised if you're along the immediate coast starting now. And I would say as this traverses the bay, we're going to see those winds probably gust to 90, 100, maybe slightly above 100 miles an hour. So this is going to be, I think, the scariest part of the storm for people that are hunkering down right now. So don't be surprised by it, because now we're starting to see the Eyewall actually move onshore. And as it moves onshore, that's when the strongest winds are going to move onshore. So look at how much rain's fallen in the Gulf. It's been about 15 inches of rain. So clearly that is what's moving into southern Pinellas. We already have 10 inches. That's the total. So we're going to see at least 15 inches in St. Pete. We may end up seeing something similar to a foot of rain in places like Tampa. And by the way, there are about 400,000 plus people in the state of Florida now without power. So little by little, people are losing power across the area right now as these strongest winds begin to swing on in. How much extra rain are we likely to see? Well, with this track, the heaviest rain will be from St. Pete through Tampa, through like Zephyr Hills and Wesley Chapel. And as you can see in the dark shades of red, we're going to see up to another 8 to 12 inches of rain. In St. Pete, another 8 inches on top of the 10. So we're going to get 15, some places even more than 15 inches of rain. All right, with that said, I'm going to toss it over to Rebecca Barry so I have a voice for the rest of the night. And Rebecca, thank you for picking up the slack for me tonight. What a night to lose my voice, right?
I know. Your voice is a victim of Milton. We've got some great videos and photos that you guys are sending in, and when you can, safely take pictures or videos and share them with us. We love to share them with everyone else. This is from Rhonda in Bradenton around 6:49 as one of the outer rain bands started to come through. One of the closer to the Eyewall rain bands started to come through. She said she heard the winds pick up before she saw it, and so she went to the window and captured this for us. And so if you have some photos or videos that you would like to share with us, you can do so very easily with WFLA.com/reportit. That's our new way to get pictures and videos into our system. You can access it by scanning your QR code right here, or you can just go to WFLA.com/reportit. It sends those pictures and videos. We can pull them straight into our weather system, straight into our news gathering system, and that way we can share with people what it looks like in your neighborhood, because we can't have crews everywhere, unfortunately. And so we love having your input and your pictures and videos there as well. So a Category 3 storm at this point with maximum winds around 120 miles per hour, and that landfall is within moments. It's moving to the northeast at 15 miles per hour, and so it's going to maintain Category 1 strength through Polk County. As it gets closer to Orlando, it'll still be a Category 1, but this new update, we just got an update from them at 7 o'clock, shows it as a tropical storm off the coastline of the Atlantic. And so that does mean that they're thinking it's going to weaken a little bit more quickly than their previous model runs, because previously they kept it as a Category 1 even after exiting the coastline there. So hopefully it weakens a little bit faster. That would mean a little bit less damage for inland areas in the East Coast. Unfortunately, we're getting the full brunt of it here on the West Coast. And so we've been watching the wobble tracker like a hawk, because this red line is the center track for the National Hurricane Center forecast. Right now, splitting the difference between Bradenton and Sarasota. It's kind of been flopping back between those two landfalling locations for days now. And so it looks like it'll be right down the middle. And so when we're watching the wobble tracker, the wobble tracker is favoring just to the south of that. This is why we have this tool, to see where the actual storm is ending up versus the forecast. And so it looks like...
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good evening from Tampa. We're coming on the air with breaking news here in Florida, where landfall for Hurricane Milton is now imminent. The Eyewall passing over Tampa Bay right now. Milton is a potentially catastrophic Category 3 storm. The wind has been picking up here by the minute. We could see winds as high as 120 miles an hour, but the biggest threat to life, we've said it before, the extreme flooding. The storm surge forecast to reach up to 13 feet would swallow huge portions of the Florida coastline and cause massive destruction. Millions of people have already fled their homes, but with airports and roads now closed in this region, the time to evacuate is over. Anyone who stayed behind is at risk. Tampa's mayor already warning those who did not get out could die. Ahead of landfall, Milton also made its mark today with a terrifying outbreak of tornadoes that ripped apart buildings and knocked out power in some areas. The last time Tampa took a direct hit from a hurricane was more than a century ago. The storm-weary region has barely started recovering from Hurricane Helene, which hit just 2 weeks ago. Marissa Parra is nearby here in Tampa with the latest. Marissa, what are you seeing?
Hey, Lester, you can see those heavy sheets of rain all around me, the wind gusts blowing around those trees, which are probably the biggest and best indicator for you to see just how powerful it is. And just to let our viewers know, we are taking extra precautions because of all that debris that we've been reporting on for days left over from Hurricane Helene, which could become lethal projectiles. That is why we are not out there in the elements as much as we are. We are taking precautions. But this is also the reason why we're seeing suspended operations for at least 5 different county emergency rescues. They say that this is not something they're going to play around with. We've heard this for days. They warned us that they would not be able to perform the same overnight emergency rescues that we saw with Hurricane Helene. And the big risk, the big factor is that debris that would be flying around. So here in the Tampa area, I know there's so many questions on what exactly the storm surge or the flooding will look like. But one thing we're hearing over and over again is regardless, that debris that is left over, they only were able to pick up about 50% in those barrier islands, so 50% of that still remains, and that is going to make the destruction that much worse than it would have been otherwise, Lester, because you have all of that either floating around or flying around. We have wooden boards with nails on it, obviously posing a massive risk to anyone, and also the buildings that stand in their way, Lester.
All right, Marissa Parra, thanks very much. The rain just coming down in torrents, the wind continuing to pick up. Al Roker tracking the storm for us. Al, how soon will we see the worst of this?
Well, Lester, as you said, the northern Eyewall is now making its way in toward you. And in fact, in Tampa, St. Pete, there is an extreme wind emergency warning right now. 120-mile-per-hour winds moving northeast at 15 miles per hour. We expect landfall now anytime between now and 10 p.m. tonight. So it is imminent, in fact, and then it makes its way through the state just south of Orlando and then out into the Atlantic. We do have those surge warnings right now, but we also have wind gusts right now. Sarasota 93, 53 Tampa, 43 West Palm Beach. And of course, we're going to be looking at the possibility of extreme wind gusts of Sarasota looking at 125 mile per hour wind gusts, Captiva 63, Lakeland 65, 61 mile per hour wind gusts for Orlando. The storm surges right now, what we're looking at for Tampa to St. Petersburg, 6 to 9 feet right now, 9 to 13 feet. Sarasota to Fort Myers there, it could be about 8 to 12 feet. And when it comes to that rain, we are talking about a moderate risk of very heavy rain stretching from the eastern shore of Florida through Orlando, Tampa, down to Sarasota. We're talking about upwards of 18 inches of rain, Lester. Generally, could be anywhere from 5 to 10 inches. But again, this is going to be a high impact storm. And of course, with all those winds and all that rain, we are going to be looking at major problems going for the next several days. Lester?
All right, Al, thanks very much as we look around, making sure we're not seeing any localized flooding here because the rain is coming down very heavily. We'll continue to monitor all this. It concludes this NBC News special report. We will have much more ahead all night long on our streaming network, NBC News Now, on NBC.com. I'm Lester Holt. Thank you for watching and good evening.
Both the eye and the eye walls are moving through Polk County overnight tonight. No storm surge, of course. You do have that elevated risk for tornadoes. A lot of that risk was played out this morning, though, with those outermost rain bands moving through. And we had one really tornadic rain band that just set over our inland counties for a couple of hours. You don't have to worry about rainfall for most areas, 3 to 6 inches, but northern Polk, especially north of I-4 and east and western Polk, could see 10 to 14 inches of rain. You're kind of within that swath of very heavy rain. For Citrus, Hernando, and Pasco, your maximum wind gusts will be between 70 and 100 miles per hour, except for Citrus. You'll probably max out around 70. Not going to see much storm surge for you guys because of the direction of the wind, and you're looking at a low threat for tornadoes. But you will get into that inland flooding from 10 to 15 inches of rainfall, and locally could see some 18+ inches of rainfall, and that's mainly for Pasco and eastern Hernando counties that we're looking at that. And so I do worry about the high tide times, not necessarily where we have the offshore winds, because that's not going to be an issue with storm surge flooding, but the Sarasota Bay midnight high tide is problematic because the storm surge is moving in before that. And so the high tide that approaches after that will just exacerbate the storm surge that is still there. The Venice high tide is just shy of that. And the St. Pete Pier is interesting because of its position on the eastern side of Pinellas County. Because the water's blowing across the bay, we are going to see higher than normal levels of high tide at the St. Pete Pier. So that's at 2 a.m. early tomorrow morning. And so the main impacts to the south of the eye, that's where we're worried about the storm surge. We have this big swath of hurricane force winds with gusts upwards of 100 miles per hour. This is really where we're going to see a lot of power outages, and the heaviest rains to the north of the Eyewall. So Pinellas, northern Hillsborough, and Pasco County, that's kind of where we're monitoring for the worst of the rainfall. As far as what you can expect tonight, the strongest winds, we're talking 120 mile per hour plus at the coast in Manatee and Sarasota counties near landfall. We're possibly including Pinellas in this now just because we've seen on the radar that the highest wind rates are on the northwestern side of the eye, which will move over Pinellas. Elsewhere, we'll see 70 to 100 mile per hour wind gusts tonight. You will probably get at some point that high wind warning on your phone, probably over the next 2 hours, as that northwestern edge of the Eyewall with the heaviest of the winds moves across Pinellas and then into Hillsborough County. And so that's a very piercing alarm if you haven't turned it off within the settings. So don't be surprised by that. And as the eye moves over, the winds do get calm in the very center of the eye. They get a little bit calmer once the eye wall passes, but they get really calm in the center of the eye. But it doesn't last very long. And so we don't want you out adventuring and enjoying that, because the winds will pick up very quickly on the backside of that. And as we know, the winds on this particular storm seem to be stronger on the backside. And so the winds pick up on that backside. And so we just want you to have a way to stay safe, getting away from those windows, especially when the wind gusts really start. Tropical storm force winds encasing the entire state. Those damaging winds, we call them 60 mile per hour or above, those are power outage winds. They encompass most of our area, but that hurricane wind field with 74 mile per hour winds, it finally makes its way across the state, exits our area by about 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. The tropical storm force winds start to exit our area by 11:30 tomorrow morning. And then the cleanup begins. But please be careful, because more injuries, more deaths occur after a system passes than during the system itself in most cases. We have generator accidents, we have chainsaw accidents, we have electrocutions because of all the power outages down, not to mention the run-of-the-mill just getting hurt picking up debris. So please be very careful and take it slow out there. The heaviest wind gust region here. And so especially with that northwestern portion of the eye pushing over Pinellas and South Tampa over the next couple of hours, that's when we're going to possibly experience those 110 mile per hour plus wind gusts. And as far as what you can expect for the storm surge, once again, we checked in on that already. And then let's talk about behind the storm, because we've got all this tropical moisture moving over us right now, but air goes counterclockwise around low pressure systems. And this is a powerful low pressure system. So it's dragging down this cooler, drier air. And as it starts to exit our area, it starts to drag that cooler, drier air across our area. That's why we're getting that break in the humidity for the weekend. And that's also why we're getting cooler air. They're having fall up there, I hear, and we're going to get a little bit of taste of it as it drags down some of that fall air, putting us in the 60s on Friday morning and on Saturday morning, and afternoon temperatures only in the 70s. So if there is a silver lining to this, it's that when we're without power, we do have a couple of nights of windows open weather, and we're not slipping right back into rainy season. This might be a very dramatic end to rainy season, you guys.
All right. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Yes, we are just continuing to follow things. We know there are some power outages I think Rebecca also brought up a very good point. When you're thinking about going out and doing any kind of cleanup, if you think the worst has passed, you still don't know about down power lines, you still don't know about what dangers are out there, and also always be aware about going through waters. You always see people going out and kind of trudging through the water to see how deep it is. You don't know exactly what's in that water or if there are down power lines nearby.
And speaking of down power lines and power outages, I'm looking at TECO's outage map right now. They have 71,000, almost 72,000 customers without power right now. Let me see if I can pull up the outage map for Duke Energy real quick here too. These numbers are growing rapidly. 129,000 outages in the Bay Area alone for Duke Energy as well. We will continue to see those too as that western side, that western eye makes landfall as well. They say that is the stronger side of the storm. So folks there that have yet to impact or have the impact of those winds will certainly unfortunately lose power.
And as you know, our meteorologists have continued to talk about, even once the eye of the storm has crossed over land, we are going to be feeling those effects for many, many hours. I think Rebecca said we'll feel those tropical storm force winds until about 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. So don't think about jumping the gun and trying to go out and do anything or survey anything too soon. It's just safer to stay indoors and make sure that everything has passed.
Do we have some of these viewer videos that have come into the station? We want to show you some of these images that we've been getting in from folks who have made every effort to do this safely. This is video courtesy of Jason Bost from the Wilderness Lakes Preserve in Land O'Lakes. The heavy winds there shaking up the screen enclosures.
And we want to show you video from the Turtle Lakes area. This is in Lutz, courtesy of Justin Petrowski. You can see water dropping through the back screen of the patio onto the pool. We know lots of viewers have been sending them in, and we appreciate that as long as you can do so safely.
This is video from Jessica Lopez showing just how high the floodwaters are rising in her neighborhood. I don't know exactly where that is happening, but I guarantee that is a scene that's playing out across the Bay Area.
Hillsborough County Sheriff Chuck Chronister actually posted this video on X showing the conditions beginning to deteriorate outside of the sheriff's office, that in Ybor City. Of course, now the sun has set in areas. If we could take a shot of our tower cam, you'll kind of be able to see what's happening with the Hillsborough River as it goes the other direction. As the water is rising in the Fort Myers area, it's actually dropping in our area just because of how strong those winds are in that storm surge that's hitting south of us down in the Bradenton, Sarasota area.
Not long ago, we got a debrief from the governor, Ron DeSantis, and he made it very clear, along with emergency management officials, that now is the time to shelter in place. It is too late to make any change in location. This is the moment where you have to ride out the storm exactly where you are. We want to get to News Channel 8's Brittany Muller.
Yes, she is standing by live. She is in Manatee County. Brittany, how are things down there?
Stacey, we're about 6 miles away from Sarasota Bradenton Airport, and things are quickly deteriorating here outside. The wind gusts have been reported to reach 60 miles per hour. A transformer just blew in this area. We just got out. We don't have any power in this area. So let's get over to this video from Bradenton Police Department. This is of the Green Bridge over the Manatee River, where you could see trees whipping in the wind. Here's what we know at this hour. Emergency services in Manatee County have been suspended. Manatee County utility crews are continuing to monitor the outflow at the Lake Manatee Dam. Crews are working to maintain the lake level at 36 feet. Conditions are expected to worsen before they improve. We continue to get those notifications on our phones, shelter in place, get off the roadways, and that's what the main message is from county leaders at this time. We don't really see anyone outside, which is a good sign, but of course we'll be here monitoring the conditions throughout the night. Stacey, Jen, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Brittany.
Hillsborough County leaders warn this is the time to stay indoors. Nowhere else to go right now. Stay hunkered down. Our Ty Russell has been outside. He's out by the Hillsborough River, very close to us here at the News Center. And Ty, can you visibly see the river going down?
Yeah, it's so dark right now, so we've been having a little issues trying to visibly see the river. Of course, we're staying yards away from it just because things are starting to worsen these conditions here. But if we can try to zoom in, Pat, I don't know if we could turn on the gain again just to get a closer picture here of the river. How is it, Pat? Can you see it okay in the camera?
Barely see it.
Oh, okay. So we're trying to give you a better picture here of the river, but it's still going the direction that we want it to go, which is away from the Bay Area. We want it to go out into the Gulf. Because last time during Helene, we were seeing the opposite, and then we were experiencing flooding. Like, it was unsafe for us to even stand right out here where we are. And this is in the downtown Tampa area. The WFLA studios were under a little patio area, but you can see downtown Tampa. You can see the rain is still falling. Rain has continued to fall in this area for the last several hours or so right now. At times, it gets harder over the last 10 minutes or so. We felt the winds pick up here in this area. Of course, you can hardly tell just by where we are standing because some of these trees are blocked by buildings, but the wind has been picking up. The rain has been getting a little harder. Thankfully, the water, we haven't been seeing it crash into the seawall here. And I know that there are many homes and businesses along like Bayshore. I'm pretty sure many of you remember Bayshore and how flooded that was. That is why we are closely monitoring the Hillsborough River, because we don't want to see that water going into these neighborhoods and these businesses all over again, affecting so many lives. Now, I've been monitoring Tampa officials and Hillsborough officials. They've been sending messages out through email and over X. And right now, Tampa told me 3,000 people are in shelters. Of course, Hillsborough County leaders, they are saying that several of their shelters are already at max capacity. So they are telling people if they have to make those last-minute life-saving decisions, of course, everybody should stay in place. But if they have to make a last-minute decision, that there are definitely other shelters that they can go to. And of course, those are last resort decisions, like if, your mobile home community is flooding or your apartment, there something happened. But again, officials are telling me to let you know to stay in place. Don't go anywhere for the next several hours. Of course, we will be dealing with power outages. As you can see over my shoulder, downtown Tampa has not been affected just yet when it comes to power outages, but we are closely standing by here to see if we see any flashes of light or anything like that. But the winds are picking up a little bit here. Of course, they will get worse and worse as the time moves on, and we will continue to monitor for any updates. But for now, we are live here in downtown Tampa. I'm Ty Russell, 8 on your side.
Thanks, Ty. It's 8:10 p.m. and we are just moments from landfall. Jeff Baradelli, our chief meteorologist, tells us it's going to make landfall in Bradenton, and it's just minutes away at this point. So that area expected to see some major storm surge.
Sarasota, indeed, is an area of great concern. News Channel 8's Nicole Rogers is in downtown Sarasota for us right now. You are safely indoors because it is a bumpy ride for folks down there right now.
It's definitely been a bumpy ride for sure, I can tell you. Right now, I'm waiting on a call from Sarasota County, from the EOC, so that I can get a glimpse of exactly what's going on across Sarasota County right now. I know I can tell you that we have video that we shot earlier that we're trying to get in of the transformers blowing left and right. It looks like a fireworks show out here in Sarasota. Again, just waiting on that phone call and to get the very latest information on what we're seeing here in Sarasota County. It's very important. Of course, the wind right now is our biggest issue. The surge is what we're really going to be waiting on, but the wind right now is our biggest issue here in Sarasota County. I know we've had gusts of 90 miles per hour and a 60 mile per hour sustained wind. That's a very important number because Sarasota County Sheriff's Office says after 45 miles per hour of sustained winds, their deputies will not be responding to emergencies or calls for service because it's simply not safe. That's why Sarasota County evacuated areas A, B, and C, those evacuation zones, because it might get to the point where they can't come save you, and it seems like that time is now. We've seen the winds just whipping across downtown, and we've spoken to several people who have evacuated who said Helene was really a wake-up call for them. They evacuated from the floodwaters after not heeding those warnings the last time, and they said they are not making that mistake again. I will be continuing to wait for this phone call so that we can get the very latest information on you guys to see exactly what's going on out there across the county and what we're seeing right now with those 911 calls, what calls for service are there, how are the power outages. We're going to get all those answers here in just a couple minutes. Live in Sarasota, Nicole Rogers, 8 on your side.
And Jeff and Rebecca join us now, and we are just moments away from landfall.
they mentioned in their 8 o'clock advisory that it's about to make landfall. It's going to happen right by the Sarasota-Bradenton Airport, which is originally where the National Hurricane Center said it was going to go. So everybody else is on the north side. If you're from Bradenton and you're into St. Pete or Tampa, you're on the north side of the Eyewall, which turns out is the strongest part, at least in terms of the rainfall. And by the way, the backside has probably the strongest wind. So I think actually we're going to be surprised, or not now because I'm telling you, but surprised by the fact that the backside is going to be just as strong, if not stronger. We've had some pretty strong wind gusts.
And the governor and emergency manager said not too long ago that they have already seen 125 structures damaged or destroyed because of those strong winds.
Yeah, so let's take a look at some of those winds right now. Look at this, Sarasota-Bradenton Airport, 93 miles an hour. And again, that's exactly where it's making landfall right now. So I suspect that we may see even higher wind gusts. This is just the front side of the storm. Downtown St. Pete, 89 miles an hour. Northport, 78 miles an hour. And in Clearwater, 80 miles an hour. So the gusts that we're expecting have now come to fruition. Now, this is an interesting graphic. Let me show you why. This is the tide gauge at Fort Myers, and this is the tide gauge at St. Petersburg. Notice how in Fort Myers, and by the way, there aren't any gauges that NOAA has in between Tampa Bay and all the way south to Fort Myers. So there isn't anything in between there. Otherwise, we'd see a lot more water. But notice that we've seen 4 feet of water all the way south in Fort Myers. So the tidal flooding that we're seeing along the beaches in places like Sarasota County, obviously a lot higher than that. Now in St. Petersburg, notice this red line right here. The red line is falling. So the tide is actually going out in St. Petersburg. In fact, we can see that from our camera, which is located on top of the station. Looking down at the Hillsborough River, we can see the water going out. So we avoided a worst case scenario for the bay today just because the system went about 15, 20 miles south. 15, 20 miles north, we would have had about 15 feet of water in the nooks and crannies of Tampa Bay, right on top of downtown Tampa and downtown St. Petersburg. So these areas, the bay itself, dodged a bullet, but obviously we collectively have not dodged a bullet. Let's take a look. As we zoom on in, the strongest winds are moving in right now. Again, we've clocked winds gusting to 80 miles an hour at the Clearwater Airport. We've clocked winds gusting close to 90 miles an hour in downtown St. Pete. And all these strong winds are heading into Tampa, downtown Tampa right now, places like Riverview. And next stop will be Lakeland. Now, we don't expect the winds to be as strong, but I still suspect that we're going to see some gusts close to 100 miles an hour. Obviously, they'll be a little weaker once they get to Polk County, but still 80, 90 mile an hour wind gusts as this begins to move across. Again, landfall is coming soon. We can actually see the center of circulation right there. So it's basically making landfall right now. And you can see the empty spot, that's the eye. That's why those strong winds just moved through Sarasota. Now on the north side in this orange and brownish shading, that's the strongest wind, and it's moving right through Tampa Bay right now. And then next stop, it's gonna be Palmetto. Next stop after that, it's gonna be Ruskin, Apollo Beach, and probably also South Tampa as well, as these strong winds move across southern Pinellas County. Those are the 90 to potentially 100 mile an hour wind gusts that we're likely to see. And there's one more thing I want to show you, and then we're going to get Rebecca Barry in here, but take a look at these totals. They are still increasing. 16 inches of rain over the Gulf. I'm only showing you that because that is the band that's coming in. St. Petersburg, we've seen 11 inches of rain, so almost a foot already. And I suspect that we're going to see at least another half a foot of rain in places like St. Pete. So, Rebecca, in total, we are likely to end up with 18 inches of rain. But again, luckily, we didn't see that surge into Tampa Bay, and that was a saving grace for those residents.
Absolutely. So this worst of the surge from Bradenton southward, and this is a little bit further south than that, Marco Island, but look at the surge coming over the wall, and you can see this is right before sunset. So we love it when you share these photos and videos with us so we can show people what it looks like in your in your neighborhood. And so the way that you do that very easily is through our Report It function. And so you can go to WFLA.com/report it to upload your photos or videos there, or you can just scan this QR code right here on your phone. That brings you straight to that site and allows us to pull in those weather videos and those weather photos directly into our weather system, in addition to our news system, so we can get them out quickly and show people what it looks like in your neighborhood. So thank you so much for sharing that. And so currently about to make landfall within minutes, we'll get a notice from the National Hurricane Center of that landfalling location, just like Jess said, going to be right by the airport. So the storm surge most likely affecting Sarasota southward, particularly down towards Venice, will be the worst of it. It's still moving to the east-northeast at 15 miles per hour. It's going to weaken to a Category 1 storm over Polk County, and then a tropical storm as it exits the east coast near Titusville and moves out over the open Atlantic. And so the track probably not going to change that much moving forward. We're getting very close to that landfalling location, and that's when we're going to see, of course, the worst of the winds on the back half of that eyewall. So we're awaiting landfall, but we'll let you guys know when we get the official landfall.
Thank you very much. We are still struggling with a lot of power outages. That will continue as we go through the night, and those winds continue to whip big portions of our viewing area.
We see tens of thousands of power outages already from TECO customers and from Duke customers. Pasco County in particular, we want to get to News Channel 8's Eileen Natchik. She's in Wesley Chapel for us. And you're there. Do you still have power where you're at? I know we can throw a lot of light on a situation because of our live shots, but what's the power situation where you're at?
Yeah, where I'm at right now, specifically in Wesley Chapel, around the Hyatt Hotel, power is on. We are good. But yeah, power lines are actually down in the area. Cannot tell you specifically where they are, but they are causing significant blockages. And due to Hurricane Milton, those winds picking up now at 50 to 60 miles per hour. I'm going to step to the side here so my photographer, Jamie, can actually zoom in on some trees here just to give you a visualization of how windy things are. But Pasco County Fire Rescue, guys, has suspended all emergency response in Pasco County because the roads are no longer safe to drive on. So please call 911 if you do need help. But Pasco County officials, they do ask everyone to remain sheltered where they are. And they actually just posted on their Facebook page, which is also a resource for you guys to check if you're in the area too, that they have received reports of downed trees blocking roadways. So the time to shelter is now. Do not go outside or attempt to go outside. It is extremely dangerous. Again, those power lines are down in the area. You see behind me, my hood is flying up. And yeah, that wind coming from the northeast. And guys, I don't think it's coming down anytime soon. If anything, it'll get stronger. But again, sustained winds at 35 miles per hour, close to tropical storm, up to 50 to 60 miles per hour here in the Pasco County area. Again, where I'm at currently, Wesley Chapel. Send it back to you.
All right. Thanks, Eileen. And of course, she is inland, but even further inland in counties like Polk County, and actually all the way across Florida. The storm is going to go all the way across to Jacksonville. So these interior counties, which normally don't see a lot when it just skirts the coast, they're feeling the brunt of this as well.
Yeah, Georgia MacArthur joins us now from Lakeland in Polk County. And I'll tell you, this is an area that is no stranger to some big hurricanes. Charlie, Francis, and Jean crisscrossed that county in 2004. Folks have been worried about this one because they know what the impacts can be. Hurricane Irma left people without power for days and days, and they are in for a rough night there tonight. Georgia, tell us what you're experiencing.
Well, Jen, I'm experiencing the waves really packing the punch here. They've definitely picked up within the last half hour. We are seeing flooding, power outages, and a lot of people are really heeding some of those warnings here. Not a lot of people have been coming here to the downtown Lakeland area. We spoke to quite a few residents who migrated from Pinellas County to Polk to get away from some of that weather.
I've lived in my home for 35 years. And this is the first time ever that I've evacuated. And it was the fact that it was a Cat 5. And I just recall vividly the damage that was done to Fort Myers. And all of the models had it hitting directly at St. Pete. Now, that's changed, of course, but my wife has special needs, so I wanted her to be in a safe location.
And Jen and Stacy, the winds continue to pick up right here. This is why officials tell people to stay inside. Do not come out here in these conditions because the winds are nothing to play with. As you can see, they keep getting stronger and stronger by the minute, as well as some of that rain keeps coming down very heavily. Jen and Stacy.
All right, thanks, Georgia. And we know that the storm has made landfall at SRQ Airport. That's the Sarasota-Bradenton Airport. That is just within the last few minutes. At least it was moments away when we talked to Jeff a minute ago. So that area is really, might be in the eye of the storm right now, but it's going to see a lot on the back end.
Yeah, the backside of this storm, according to our meteorologist, is going to be a rough side. The conditions have been deteriorating in Manatee County all evening. We want to get right over to News Channel 8's Brittany Muller. She's in Lakewood Ranch. And Brittany, you have someone standing by that you're going to talk to tonight because folks are really, they're worried there tonight.
Jen, they are worried, and it's very emotional here in Manatee County. Stacy, you just said it. We are 6 miles away from the Sarasota-Bradenton Airport, and it just made landfall. Hurricane Milton made landfall in this area. Sarah's joining me right now. She's riding out Hurricane Milton with us here at the hotel. How are you doing? We lost power, so how are you holding up right now?
I'm actually doing pretty well. I have my niece and her daughter with us, or with me, and we actually traveled earlier in the week thinking that the weather would not quite be like this. But I used to live in Florida, so this is not necessarily old or new to me, but this is the most severe one that I've been through, and I've not ever had to do it in a hotel. So a little bit different experience, but we're holding up okay. You know, we've got the preparations, we've got plenty of food, we've got all the things. And the big thing is, you know, we're doing what we're told. Stay put, you know, shelter in place, don't go out, don't drive. So we've done all those things even up to the point where the hurricane was starting to really move a lot closer in.
Sarah, you were telling me you came down, you traveled from Colorado for a family reunion.
Yeah, family reunion of sorts. My nieces had not been here in quite a few years. I come back quite often, but they had not seen all their relatives. So I had scheduled this trip like 6 months ago, and we decided, why not? So it's now or never. And it turned out to be a different experience, but we did get to see all the relatives before all this started to happen.
What area, what community here?
Sarasota and Bradenton. So, and then I have friends that are in Sarasota and Bradenton area as well. I grew up here as a child, and then I moved away to Colorado, and then I've come back. I kind of go back and forth. I'm a good tourist. I'm a good local.
Right.
A little bit of both.
This community could brace some of the worst impacts that we're seeing from Hurricane Milton. When that sun comes up tomorrow morning, we're going to see it for the first time. Are you fully expecting to see a different community?
Completely. And since a lot of my ties are to Siesta Key, and when I lived here, they were Siesta Key, I was heartbroken 2 weeks ago with Helene, and this is going to be even more heartbreaking because this is still home to me, and this is still my community. This is where I want to go out and help people if I can. But again, you know, you're limited with what you can do. But yes, I will 100% support, you know, whatever needs to be done. And obviously we've got to keep staying out of the way or figuring out what to do. But so many people that are staying here, I don't own a home here anymore, but so many people that are staying here, the devastation, you know, the devastation that they're going through with what do I take, what do I, you know, leave behind. It's just not anything you can really put in words. You know, it's something that if you've never been through it, you know, you obviously will experience it when you go through it, but it's really heartbreaking to see people going through this.
It's amazing to see here at this hotel. People are coming together. We lost power probably about an hour ago, and the hotel's giving us glow sticks. Obviously, we have battery powered lights. That's why it's so light in this room, but your room next door is not like this. Completely dark.
Completely dark.
And so it's quiet, it's dark. You could hear that wind howling, and it's frightening.
It can be. And I think because I lived here, I'm not quite as, you know, it's Mother Nature as well, you know, so I'm not quite as frightened as maybe, you know, my nieces might be because they've not ever experienced this kind of thing. But it is frightening no matter what, because nature does what nature does. And that's the thing that you just can't predict.
You know, one of the things when we're talking, we're down in the lobby, when we're in these areas, everyone's talking about Helene and the devastation and the debris piled up. And it gives you the chills knowing that they don't know what they're going to see when they return home. When you have your family members in Sarasota and Bradenton, did they evacuate? Are they concerned?
I have some friends that evacuated. Some of them are in Jacksonville and Tallahassee. And then I also have family members that have stayed and boarded up and put out the sandbags this time, really paying attention to what this storm was potentially going to bring versus even what Helene did. And so they really did prepare. And again, they listened to the precautions. They followed kind of, the rules or of course, what you should and shouldn't do. And in my particular instance, my family and friends are safe. So I'm very grateful for that.
We're so happy to hear. That's the top priority right now, people's safety.
Everybody's safety. And the thing I think I worry about the most, especially even in a hotel setting, is we have a lot of elderly people here. And, if we lose the elevators, then we've all got to pitch in and help those people come up and down the stairs and things that, what we can do on a smaller scale to kind of still get to the next day. So
it's really emotional, and that's what it is. Sarah said it best. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. I think it's a community right now. Wherever you are, wherever you're sheltering in place, that's the message. People are helping people. People are just coming together in such a dire time, and we know that it's going to worsen before it improves. So we're riding out the storm, and we're being safe, and we're hoping that you're being safe as well. For now, reporting live in Manatee County, Brittany Muller, 8 on your side.
All right, Brittany, thank you very much. We appreciate that. We do have some additional videos that have come into the news center that we want to share with folks.
Yeah, we're going to start with video from the Lake Sarasota subdivision. That's off I-75 and Bee Ridge Road. This is courtesy of Allison LaRange. We're told multiple transformers in that area have gone, sending colored lights in the sky. This is the real danger out there. This is why you don't want to be out in the dark, not knowing where power lines might be down.
And we want to show you video from South Brooksville as well, courtesy of Brittany. The wind shaking a giant tree, sending rain in several directions. Scary sight. It is a little unnerving when you're inside your home and you are hearing this, and maybe when you don't have power, this can be a terrifying sight. News Channel 8's Jeff Patterson joins us right now from Hillsborough County. He has an update on conditions there. Jeff.
I know you've been out chasing things and you're in the thick of it, Jeff.
Good evening, Stacy and Jen. Yes, we are in the thick of it right now. We are on Davis Boulevard on Davis Island. So we have been driving around tonight. We did have a report that there might be some street flooding on Water Street, in the Water Street area, what was formerly known as Channelside. We went down in front of Anomaly Arena and we did not see any street flooding. What we did see was some pretty heavy wind and rain. You might be able to tell behind me that the power is still on here on Davis Island. I do know from having friends tell me that some of the power throughout Tampa is out at this time. But much of the power here on Davis Islands is still on, which is remarkable because we have seen the arcs of transformers blowing periodically throughout the course of the evening. And you might be able to tell just the sheets of water coming at me. What you're looking at is I'm standing in about a foot of water here on Davis Boulevard, but this is not the storm surge. This is just the fact that we have had nonstop rain here in Tampa for hours and hours. And so we're not seeing the kind of damage that we saw during Hurricane Helene with storm surge here on Davis Islands. We have driven around a bit. We have not seen the water heading into homes yet, thankfully. But there is a lot of street flooding here, and there's debris floating in the streets because, of course, people have been cleaning up their homes from being devastated by Hurricane Helene, picking up the trash and debris and setting it on the side of the streets. And unfortunately, the city of Tampa and the vendors that they hired have not been able to clear that out in time. So much of that debris is now just floating loosely here in the streets of Davis Islands. What we have also seen is because of this incredible amount of water, the storm sewers here are overwhelmed, and we've seen just manhole covers kind of percolating up with that force of water from underground coming up through those manhole covers. So the force of water just coming down the street here is remarkable. The winds are fairly heavy at this point, but the rain is coming down hard. And again, this rain has been coming down since this morning in Tampa. So a lot of the retention ponds, a lot of the ditches on the side of the road are completely overwhelmed at this point. So even though we may not have storm surge here in Tampa, we are seeing some street flooding. And no doubt there are a number of low-lying areas here in Tampa that are experiencing that kind of street flooding right now. So just even here on Davis Boulevard, as we've been driving around the side streets and everything, this is the kind of thing that we are seeing throughout Davis Islands. And this is the last thing that people here need, because they are still trying to recover, of course, from Hurricane Helene and now this. So thankfully, at least for the people here in Tampa, the storm surge did not come up through Tampa Bay. But look at these conditions. This is about as bad as it's been all night long. And we've been monitoring very closely the weather conditions out here. And now the wind is starting to pick up, as you might be able to tell. The rain is hitting us pretty hard. So this is why we're seeing the street flooding. You guys, we are trying to keep an eye on things as best we can, just driving around to see what's going on. And of course, we're relying on News Channel 8 viewers to alert us what's going on in their areas. When daylight comes, we'll be able to go out and survey the damage much better to find out what kind of damage Hurricane Milton has done. But right now, the wind is really picking up. The rain is coming down, and so we're keeping an eye on best we can. Back to you guys.
Jeff, you need to be safe out there. And, you know, watching that debris float around, that's why people can't be out driving in this. A, you don't know how deep it is. It's dark out there. And with all of that debris, there's just stuff everywhere. And by the way, I mentioned I thought it made landfall, but we're waiting for official word from the National Hurricane Center, right?
I mean, it's happening right now, basically. Yeah, it's happening right now. I want to show you something. I found a gauge in Sarasota. Okay. So let's go to the map and show you. So there's been 10 feet of storm surge in Sarasota. You can see it right there. This is near Walker Creek. So right near Sarasota, Florida. If you're familiar with the area, you could see that the tide level was supposed to be right around here, like 2 or 3 feet. Instead, it's closer to 12 feet. So this did happen. We did end up seeing this surge, and it ended up being basically south of Bradenton. So from Sarasota and area south. Fort Myers had about 4 feet of surge. So 10 feet of surge, 4 feet of surge. This is where the biggest surge has been. I also want to tell you that we have a flash flood warning that's in effect now. Nobody's surprised by this, but right there on the northern side of Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, some places have seen 13 inches of rain already. Tampa, that rainfall is really coming down. And so they've issued a regional flash flood warning for basically this whole area right here. Again, obviously, you don't want to be outside right now. Strongest wind gusts are starting to move in now. You can see right across Tampa Bay, South St. Petersburg, and those will continue to traverse eastward as the center of circulation moves on shore. You can actually see the eye right there. See the eye moving on shore right about there. So it probably has made landfall. We're waiting for the National Hurricane Center to tell us for sure, but that's pretty clear right now. Other thing I want to show you is how much rainfall we've picked up. And so far it's been about 1 foot in St. Pete. But remember, we're still seeing that heavy rainfall across a lot of our area right now. It's going to be a little while before it ends. Look at that. So you can tell that it's going to be raining for a while in Pinellas County, Hillsborough County, and that's headed into Lakeland as well. So it's this zone right here that's going to continue to pile up the heavy rain, and some places will end up at around, I think, 18 inches of rainfall. So again, stay off the road, stay inside. Things will start to get better, but it's going to take until after midnight for that to happen. Again, it looks as though that surge of 10 feet has verified in Sarasota County, and that's just that area of Sarasota County. It may be higher to the south of downtown Sarasota as well.
8:30, Doppler radar indicated that the eye of Hurricane Milton made landfall near Siesta Key in Sarasota, Florida.
All right.
Maximum winds were estimated at 120 miles per hour.
All right, well, that was a good forecast from the National Hurricane Center, saying that the storm was going to landfall with winds of around 100, 120, 125 as a Cat 3 hurricane, and right near Sarasota Bradenton Airport, and that's where it ended up being. So at this point, if you want, I'll toss it back to you guys at the desk.
We need to preserve your voice as best we can. So official landfall, 8:30 p.m. Thank you so much. And that was in Siesta Key, again, very near SRQ Airport.
Yeah, it's hard to see the conditions continuing to deteriorate, because you almost feel like we wait, and we see the first eyewall come across our area, and you sort of cross your fingers and hope this is the worst of it and everything after that will improve. This storm is different. The front edge of this storm, the front eyewall, is powerful and destructive. We've already seen, according to the governor, 125 homes, structures damaged and destroyed because of this storm. But now, as our team has been telling you, the western end, the western side of this Eyewall is going to pack an even greater punch.
In other words, we can't breathe a sigh of relief
Not
for
yet.
a lot of hours yet, even though it's made landfall. We're only halfway there at this point. We do have some video, and we appreciate all of our viewers sending it in. This is from Ellie Bowers in Citrus Park as the rain and the winds are already bringing lots of flooding into our backyard. If you want to safely, if you're able to safely send us video and pictures, you can do it by going to WFLA.com/report it. We will put them on the air as they come in.
And check out video courtesy of Sean Gangrella from a neighborhood in the Port Tampa area. The rain is absolutely coming down, blowing. It's blowing every direction. It looks like in that video there. That's really something.
We're getting a little bit of everything in this hurricane. You know, we've seen all the high winds, in other words, just stay tuned because there's a lot more to come, sadly.
Hillsborough County leaders have been warning from the very beginning that you needed to take precautions, evacuate certain areas, zones A and B, and mobile homes. But that time is over. You have to be sheltering in place. You have to just stay where you are right now because it's no longer safe to go anywhere.
And News Channel 8's Ty Russell is live. He's on the Hillsborough River in downtown Tampa, where we've been seeing the water level decrease. We're, of course, seeing it increase to the south of us.
And Stacy and Jen, I just walked closer to the river safely, though. I just walked closer to the river, and I saw the water rushing that way. That is out of the Tampa Bay area, and that is a good sign for the folks who live right along this river. I know it's nighttime, so it's hard to see, but I was able to see the water level is low, and it is rushing out of the area. So good news for the folks who live in this area. Good news for us, too, because we couldn't be safely standing even where we are. But I'll move out of the way because I do want to show you that this wind gust and the sustained winds and the rain has really picked up over the last 30 minutes or so. We definitely felt that change come in. We can tell that we are getting closer to that Eyewall area because we had some strong gusts to come through, and it was even hard for us to stand. When I walked over to certain areas, I'm underneath a sheltered area, but when I walked out of the sheltered area to a different spot, let me tell you, it was pretty hard to stand with some of this wind coming through. But this is a look at downtown Tampa. You can see on some of the garages here, the power is still on. However, look at the rain. That is how hard the rain is coming down. And because the wind is picking up, we are talking about that sideways rain. So that's the kind of rain where it'll hit you in your face, and it'll feel like sand, kind of, almost. So that is what we've been experiencing out here in downtown Tampa. And thankfully, the power is still on. We haven't seen anybody outside, so they have definitely been listening to officials. Officials have been telling people to stay put, stay inside, stay indoors, and this is exactly why. Fortunately, I haven't seen any sort of signs or any sort of debris go through the area. I know that some of these neighborhoods have been dealing with some debris piles. However, thankfully, I haven't seen anything blow by here, but we are continuing to stay out here and monitor the situation. I've been speaking with officials from Tampa and Hillsborough County. So far, they are monitoring conditions as well. But here right now, there's a strong gust that's coming through. I don't know if you can tell with the camera, but you can definitely see that the rain is picking up. The wind speeds are picking up in downtown Tampa. And you better believe, like our awesome meteorologists have been saying throughout the night, this is only going to get worse throughout the next several hours as the storm crosses over the state of Florida. But again, I am sticking by and talking to officials, and if they have any sort of problem areas that I need to tell you about, I will definitely let you know within the next 30 to 45 minutes. But for now, I am live in downtown Tampa. Ty Russell, 8 on your side.
All right, thanks, Ty. There are a lot of power outages across the area already, more to come, no doubt. You can check in with your power company, report the outage. They're probably well aware of them, but they said it never hurts to reiterate that.
There were about 130,000 power outages already in the Bay Area before this stronger western eyewall makes its way across our area. Eileen Natchik has been monitoring the situation for us in Wesley Chapel. Looks like you still have power there. I'm encouraged to see that.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. You can see wind picking up. My hood continues to fly right behind me. But yeah, strong winds from Hurricane Milton have caused several downed power lines. And they're reminding citizens to never touch them or drive through them. And even if they wanted to drive, don't do that, because Pasco County Fire Rescue has suspended all emergency responses because it is too dangerous to drive on the road at this point. Winds starting to pick up. Used to be 25 miles per hour, now 35. That's where I'm going to bring in meteorologist Eric Stone to talk about the conditions right now. I think we were saying it's up to 60 miles per hour.
Yeah, at least. So I was just outside recording a segment, and I almost got blown over. I didn't have my feet kind of anchored, and so I'd say almost 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts. We're definitely seeing tropical storm force wind sustained. And boy, some of these rain bands are pretty intense. We've got several more inches of rain on the way.
Yeah, you mentioned intensity. We're going to actually step to the side here, Eric, and have our photographer Jamie take a look and zoom in on what's going on behind us with this wind and rain. We used to be able to see a palm tree. I don't think we could see it anymore because of how much rain and wind is going on. What's the biggest concern right now in Pasco County for viewers and the people who want to stay safe?
So definitely rainfall. I mean, we could see another 10 to 12 inches of rain before this is all said and done. Milton made landfall just before 8:30, right around the Siesta Key area in Sarasota County. But the northern end of the storm has got a lot of moisture, a lot of rain, and this heavy rain and wind is going to continue for the next 4+ hours. It even had me put this big jacket on. It doesn't even fit.
And, you know, we're going to show the people as we step back in the shot. You mentioned you were out there, you were up there, and just the amount of rain that you were able to get.
Stay Puft Marshmallow here. I mean, it's hard for me to put a rain jacket on. Usually I just go out, but no, this is a pretty heavy rain outside right now.
This is the real deal, and you want to stay inside, stay safe. If you're looking for a shelter, hopefully you are hunkered down at this point. Again, I've mentioned it all evening. Sun Lake High School, River Ridge High School, and 5A High School, all shelters pet friendly. So stay inside, stay safe. We'll be here all night bringing you the latest coverage here in Pasco County. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Eileen, and thank you, Eric. We appreciate both of you. We continue to get just flooded with all the videos and images that you are sending us, and we appreciate it. Please continue to be safe. But Rebecca Berry is going to join us by audio here as we look at some of these images. Rebecca, what is this?
So this is some rain bands moving through. You can see the whipping winds there. Magda sent this in from Town and Country, and you can see that she's probably pretty safe on a balcony up there, but a lot of those cars are most likely in danger of getting a little bit of debris blown on them with those very, very heavy winds. What I like to see is that it looks like they still have power right now, so that's the good thing. And so this one's really interesting. We're watching, these are transformers blowing, and this is in Winter Garden, Florida. So it's one of their security cameras, you know, that they just clipped us a little bit, but those are transformers going from very high winds. So you can see them flashing off in the distance.
And it's worth mentioning Winter Garden, that's further towards the East Coast as well. So this storm is having wide-ranging impacts, right?
Absolutely. And so especially those tornadoes earlier over inland areas looking really rough for some of our inland and eastern areas. And so this is just an overview, and the wind really picks up about halfway through this video. And this is from Lakewood Ranch from Eric. And you can see as he whips around here, some of the trees blowing there and some of the winds really starting to pick up there. Palm trees usually survive hurricanes, but a lot of the other trees don't. And so unfortunately, we're just looking at a very, very windy night out there. It looks like everyone's done their due diligence and picked up their debris in that neighborhood. And then we've got one more for you here, and it unfortunately didn't show up. So I'll have to go back into our system and re-import it for you guys.
No problem. We appreciate it. We're trying to turn those videos around as quickly as possible because so many of you are sending them in. And it's interesting to see the nighttime impacts, and it won't really be until the sun rises in the morning that a lot of areas will know just how bad it's gotten. So that's why it's important you continue to shelter in place. Don't get out. Don't go look. Don't go see what's going on. And definitely don't drive around, because with all these down power lines, it's a dangerous situation.
And a lot of those images that we're getting in the videos are coming from places sort of north of where the real impact zone has been, which was landfall, Siesta Key at about 8:30 tonight, 120-mile-an-hour winds. Most of our neighbors to the south of the Tampa Bay area into places like Sarasota, Manatee County, they heeded those warnings, they evacuated. So we're not going to see those impacts in real time because those folks are not there. They don't have their cameras on. I am fearful for what we will see. We know there's already been a 10-foot storm surge in Sarasota. The impacts there will be tremendous.
One of the things that we've pointed out kind of along the way in our coverage is because of Helene a couple of weeks ago, that may have actually done us a favor in terms of saving lives.
It was a cautionary tale.
Yeah, so many people saw where that flood water could go in just a Helene that skirted our coast 100 miles out, that I think it had a lot of people evacuate, which is good because that's what saves lives in these situations.
We talk a lot about the coastal communities, but there are folks in the interior of the state, Highlands, Hardy, Polk counties that are saying, what about us? I'm getting your messages. I see your posts on social media. We care about you too. And we have a reporter on the ground in Lakeland.
News Channel 8's Georgia MacArthur is in Polk County tonight. She's been there just getting pelted by the rain. Hi, Georgia.
Hey, Stacey, I'm actually having to hold on to my hat here because this rain keeps picking up. I know our Polk County viewers want to know how it looks outside, but as you can see, the wind is nearly taking me away. The conditions continue to pick up here in downtown Lakeland here. As you can see, the rain is coming down heavily, and you can hear that wind gust right down the road. We also are starting to see some of the trees lean towards the ground here. So we definitely want to remind people to stay indoors because these conditions within the last half hour have really started to pick up, and officials say we're still continuing to see some flooding in the area, power outages across the county. So we want to make sure people are staying indoors and avoiding the conditions like this. Stacey and Jen.
All right, Georgia just hanging on for dear life there.
It's hard to keep your thoughts about you when you're getting pelted by the rain and wind like that.
Which I do want to give a little bit of perspective. I know exactly where that location is. We have a bureau in downtown Lakeland. She is braving the elements for the purposes of demonstrating what the conditions are like because people very much care what the conditions are like. But she is in a very secure location with an experienced photojournalist. They can very easily duck for cover, but she is doing the Lord's work to show the viewers there in the central part of our state what's happening in their neighborhoods.
And we're also getting a lot of questions that are coming into our streaming center. That's where JB Buno is live tonight. He is there with Justin Mosley. And you guys, what kinds of questions are you hearing? And are you getting a lot of reports of outages and things?
We are hearing a lot from folks via Report It, Stacey. A lot of folks that are sending in photos and videos to WFLA.com/